All right, welcome to the show, and I have Jerry Ward. Thank you, my good buddy Jerry Ward, a fellow man in beard.
Thanks so much for having me on, man. I'm super stoked to be here.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know how busy you are. And it's kind of, I was I think it was last week when we talked to arrange the podcast. I gave you a compliment on your beard, and I was trying to grow mine longer, so I've been trying to get it like nice and full like yours. Is there any secrets?
Like literally, what's funny is like I have this one thing. I think Nivea makes it. I think, and it's like for shaving, shampoo, and soap, right? Like it works great, especially for bodybuilders for shaving, right? But for my beard, I have like 12 products.
Really?
Right? I have like an oil that I put in there, a wash, a conditioner. There's like a balm that I don't use that much, and there's like a wax. When it starts to get really long, you put it in and it keeps it like straight, so it's not like all going all crazy. There's a whole thing to it,
Apparently, I'm just starting to learn because I've had like goatees and I've had shorter beards, but I kind of want to get it about the length that you have it, or maybe just a skosh longer. I want it full, and so I haven't touched it for like, this is like week 2. This is like almost week 3, like 2.5 weeks now. This is about what I get, and
that grew in from being close shaved to that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, like through almost 3 weeks, and so.
My hair grew fast, jeez.
I don't know how because I'm Japanese, and most Japanese dudes have no body hair. I think it's all the androgens I've used in my life.
Remember Anthony DeRezzo?
No. Who?
So Anthony, he passed away at Masters Nationals so many years ago. He was on the Raising the Bar.
Okay.
Trilogy, like they were talking about Anthony. Anthony actually was from Rhode Island, where I was from. He was one of the first guys that did my first diets. And when I first started using anabolics, he said, if you want hair in your ears, hair on your back, and hair in your knuckles, keep playing with DECA, right? And I was like, whatever. Like, I don't take anything anymore, but I have hair in my knuckles. It's growing on my back. I'm like, he was right. I'm like, holy cow, that stuff. So maybe the androgens did grow your beard in. I don't know.
Well, I see. I'm an interesting, unique experiment with this because I have an identical twin brother, so we're genetically equal. And so when he can grow a beard too. Which is good, but he has not. I shave all this, like I don't like all the extra body hair, but if I didn't, I would literally look like Sasquatch. I mean, like I would. Yeah, I have hair, but I'm almost 50% Asian, like Japanese. When I took my 23andMe, and that's not a common characteristic, right, for Japanese guys. But when I look at my brother, when he doesn't shave his body, and his arms look pretty much like mine do shaved, and his chest has a little bit of hair, but mine looks like a fucking hair shield. So I'm pretty
next shirt on,
but I keep it all shaved. But I'm pretty sure that 20 some odd years of androgen use is absolutely affected. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think I noticed it's more. I noticed the density in college, like when I was like in my early 20s. Because my favorite compound was Anadrol, and I used to use a lot of Anadrol, and it had an impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm pretty sure. But besides, the androgens tend to make the sebaceous glands more active. They tend to make all the follicles, the hair follicles, more active. And it's unfortunate it didn't do the same for the hair on my head because it went the reverse direction there. But I'm actually trying to. I really like it, and I have this. It's in the Cyrus itchy stage.
You know what's weird, right? And I was just talking to I don't know if you know PJ Black. He's a pro wrestler. He used to be named Justin Gabriel in WWE.
Okay.
He was a really good friend of mine. He's super, super enlightened too. And we were talking about how when you hit a certain point of spirituality, it seems like you almost want to grow a beard. And none of us can explain why. Like Jim Carey, Russell Brand, all of these guys, when they hit like enlightenment, grew these crazy beards.
Well, every picture you see of Jesus, they all have beards.
It literally is, like you hit a certain point, you're like, this is part of. I don't know what it is, but it seems like, and nobody does it like thinking about it. Well, it just kind of happens,
One of the things that I've noticed myself, and I'd be interested to hear if you feel this way, because I know in some areas you tend to so bodybuilding is this sport that is very focused on the visual, because we're developing an aesthetic in our bodies, and so we have to be very cognizant of how we look. And I've spent my lifetime, doing this, right? And but recently, I really, well, for lack of a better word to describe it, I don't give a fuck as much. So when I sort of transpose that onto like facial hair or even the clothes I wear, I'm looking at trying to buy all the same outfits so I don't have to do anything with my clothing decisions every morning. Right. Sort of like this Einsteinian sort of way about me, but mostly because I just want to feel comfortable. and I don't want to focus on those exterior things quite so much. And I think this is a reflection of some of that too. One of the biggest draws for me of growing my beard was that I didn't have to do much with it in the morning. I didn't have to put a lot of energy and effort into something that, why am I doing this? Why am I shaving? I'm shaving so other people can, be, my face is acceptable to other people or whatnot. I'm probably exaggerating just a little bit, but because I did like the way I looked, I always have. I always liked the clean shaved look, but, and it helps today that beards are kind of in vogue, so it was encouragement there. But you're right. I do think there's something to be said for going.
Maybe it's what you just said. Maybe it's when your frame of mind goes from worrying about all those external stupid things that are technically not reality anyways. You start going, well, who cares?
Who cares?
You're like, why am I going to go to the gym and work out? Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, I can just literally control my diet and be fit, or you start thinking about a lot of stuff like, who cares? You know what I mean? I
do. As a matter of fact, I'm in the midst of a move. I'm going to be moving first to Northern California for a couple of months, and then eventually make my way to my permanent residence in Phoenix. Because I'm in Chicago now, but I'm really not. This isn't my place. I like it, but it's not my place. And I want to be close to my family. I have some medical stuff going on with my father. He's got cancer. He got diagnosed, and it's I love him, but everything happens because it happens. Everything happens for good reasons. Right. So I'm not, and I know that it's just a body, right? It's just a body that goes. It's not anything more than that. I'm not going to make too much more than that, but I do want to be close to my mother and my brother, because my brother took a position at Arizona State as a dean, and he lives there now. And as I hit 49 this year, and I'm thinking, I want to be closer to family, people who love me, people that I could, and develop those relationships more, because I spent my life really pretty much bouncing around from coast to coast, living here, living there, doing the bodybuilding thing. And it was wonderful, and it still is wonderful, but I kind of feel the need to be closer to my family because now I'm interested in the experiences. I'm not interested in the fancy cars anymore, the houses anymore, the clothes, all that stuff. And so hence the beard, it just feels to me like a natural extension of my personality now that I want to.
Did you look in the mirror and look at yourself without the beard and be like, I just don't look like myself right now?
Yes.
That was my thing. I literally I don't look like myself. Well, what the hell am I looking at? It took me a minute to wrap my head around the fact that I was changing, I was evolving, and I no longer represented my outside, what was going on the inside.
I felt like I was creating something that was contrived.
Right.
You're shaving, and don't get me wrong, I still liked the way I looked when I was shaved, but it had that feeling of contriving some image to be acceptable for everybody else. Because I'm I got to shave. And when I think about it, when you really think about it, when you look in history, in the vast length of human experience, men have historically not shaved.
Right.
Which just
back then,
well, yeah, they didn't have razors, right?
Off of the rock or something. I'm sure it was not fun, but I didn't know what it was, and then PJ of course has his beard and stuff too, and we were talking about, well, Russell Brand, when he hit that enlightenment, and Jim Carey, those are two guys, when you listen to them, you understand they're next level.
Yeah,
that's with the crazy beards all of a sudden. I was like, wow, that's interesting, because I've grown a full beard a couple of years ago, but I was already on that path. I was already kind of heading down that path.
Right.
I think it was more of just beginning it, but I was feeling a little weird. As you're everything about your life changes when you start to realize that you're this little speck, and there's this whole
grand
big around you. So it was up to then I had never grown the beard. I'd keep it shaved, I'd do the goatee or whatever. But again, it was I wanted to make a look that people, when they look at me, they're accepting of it, like you just said.
Right.
He's clean, and he's got these lines in his face or whatever. Or he's approachable now. Well, maybe with the beard I'm not approachable because of the beard, the tattoos, but.
Have you found any resistance in your interactions with people, strangers, friends, family, whatever, with the beard? Just curious.
Most people are shocked. They go
really?
Yeah, they're like, wow, it's really thick. What do you do to get it thick? You're like, you don't shave. It's.
I just don't shave.
Or they're more shocked at the fact that I have hair now rather than beard. They're more like, well, how did you grow your hair back? I'm like, I just stopped shaving my head. I was shaving it. I'm thin in the back, but I was shaving it. So I think more it's because the beard and the hair kind of came together, that everybody takes a step back and they go, whoa, but they get over it real quick,
Oh, well, I was just curious because I haven't, I think maybe it's just me, but so where I live in the North Shore, and there's a lot of different cultures that live in the areas. So like we have all kinds, and there's quite a nice Muslim community. And I have several friends and colleagues that are Muslim as well, and they're really wonderful people. I love them to death, and but I know they like the fact that I'm growing a beard. I know they like it, but because they all have beards, but or some facsimile of one. And I sometimes I sense when I interact with people who aren't in my area, maybe it's just me, but I kind of think they almost look at me like, well, for lack of a better way to describe it, like I'm a terrorist or something.
So actually, yeah. Well, to put it that way, when I had the real thick beard and I was really dark, I went to Mexico with my wife. And while we were gone, it was when the Muslim ban had taken place, or the Muslim country ban had taken place. And when we came back, we came through Dulles International, which is where we come through. When we came through, a plane from the Middle East was coming through, and we were all being shuttled through customs together. Well, when I got through there, I handed the guy my passport and it's like a little slip that prints out of the machine. He didn't even look at it. He put it down. He goes, "You're all set, sir." Went like this with his hands. "You're all set. Welcome, welcome to America." And I looked at my wife.
You're like, "Hey, man, I live in America."
Just kind of walked through, and we got out the front. There was people going, yeah, they're clapping. They're like, "Yay, welcome to America." I'm like, what the hell? So this lawyer approaches me and says, "Did you have any problems while you're here? Did they give you any, problem? Like, we're here to help." And I'm like, wait a minute. That's why they let me through there so easily? They thought I was from the Middle East, like I was Arabic or something because of the beard. And they don't want to get stuck. So they were like, no, they let us right. I could have had a backpack full of cocaine. They wouldn't have known any different because they were so paranoid about getting sued, judging someone based on their beard. But if I have the beard, every single time I go through the airport, I will be stopped, frisked down after those things, and sometimes brought to another place to be asked questions.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy. I was in Tampa, and they swabbed my my hands. They swabbed everything, which doesn't happen every time you go through. But if I have a beard, I'm getting swabbed. And it came up that I had some kind of explosive materials on my hands.
What?
So they started like ripping my sneakers apart for looking for like a shoe bomb or something. I'm like, dude, what do you? And then they took me to a secondary place, swabbed my hands again, put it in a machine that measured the amount of the chemical, and it came back that it was like a trace amount.
Right.
So the guy was like, "There's not enough that you actually handle." He goes, "It's probably something that you used, like a lotion or something." I'm like, "Well, I used the lotion at the hotel today. Like I didn't have some, so I put it on my hands, rubbed it on my face, and left." He said, "Well, there are things in the lotion that can be mixed together to make an explosive device." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I can't tell you because then you'll have that information." I'm like,
"Well, I already have the information that's."
Like that was stopped specifically because of the beard and then swabbed. And when I go through the airport, I actually asked them, "Are you stopping me because I look like I'm Middle Eastern?" They go, No. And I'm like, "Look, it's cool if you are. I just want to know what's going on because if I don't have the beard, I walk right through. If I have the beard and I'm a little darker because I'm going tanning or whatever, I get stopped and searched and asked questions and all kinds of stuff." And of course, I have the alm on my hand, and which they both equate to. They don't know what it really is.
They don't know what it is yet.
Being from the Middle East, so I'm like definitely getting profiled.
Well, when I haven't had any kind of issues, but I haven't traveled with my full beard. I did years ago, but I definitely got stopped. But they never take me. I think it's because they look at my name. My name is Tadayoshi, and that's what it's on my. So it probably is a dead giveaway that I'm not from the Middle East. I'm probably
like Jerry Ward must be a fake name. Come with us.
I don't know, but
because you have to. But at the same time, you're like, look, just be honest about it. Be like, look, we're profiling people because we want the plane to be safe. I'm cool with that. I'll stand there. I'll answer the questions, whatever. But you don't want to be lied to your face when you're like, listen, I know what you're doing. They're like, no. I'm like, but I know. They're like, no. I'm like, fine, whatever.
Well, actually, that's an interesting way to put it because I would have to agree. Profiling for safety, I think that. Do you think that's like?
I think it's fine. I have no issue with it. The thing is, like, very, very little, if anything, offends me. I don't get offended. You know what I mean? So if I look like a certain person, even though I'm not that nationality, so what? I look like them. It's not a big deal to be, confused. Like, well, is he Arabic? Is he not? Is he from the Middle East? Is he from Saudi Arabia? Where is he from? I'm from Fairfax, Virginia. But it doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like,
I think growing up Asian, I'm looking very Asian. Today I look more like when I'm shaved, I look more like I'm Italian. That's what I look like. But it's not like most people mistake me for that, or Greek. But I'm not. I'm neither of those. But I happen to be able to pass for just about anything. If I have a tan, I can pass for most Arabic, nationalities. I could pass for, I could obviously pass for Asian. But when I was younger and growing up, I definitely looked very Japanese, and I definitely felt racism and made comments and stuff and that were in school and in public. It was because it was post-Vietnam era, and so that was in the early '70s. That was just part of the deal. My mother was very white, so I definitely felt some of that stuff. So I don't know if my brother took it more personally than I did. I didn't really take it personally like you. I always figured, hey, well, they just don't know me. Yeah. Doesn't matter. And today I say, well, why would I let somebody else's negative opinion of me disrupt my good feelings, my good day, my good whatever? It's okay. You can hate if you want. You can have the feelings you want. Doesn't mean that I want to reciprocate that back.
I get it, man.
But speaking of, so now you hinted at sort of this deepening of your spirituality or of your sense of spirituality. Tell me a little about that, because that's what I'm all about.
Well, I mean, when I look back now, I realize that this has probably been going on for 25 years, and I didn't realize it. You don't realize what's going on around you sometimes. You're so wrapped up. And I think I want to say I want to blame bodybuilding for that, but I focused so much on bodybuilding. I stopped playing guitar, playing drums. I stopped everything besides bodybuilding because I was so focused on it that I wasn't aware of what was going on around me totally. And a friend of mine, Christina, had given me this book called The Celestine Prophecy, which basically deals, I don't know if you've ever read that before, but basically deals with the signs that you see when you're on the right path. So it's different numerologies and it's another one of those type of books. But it was basically if you look and you're open, you'll see the signs to let you know you're on the right path, And it was a very spiritual type book, and I was like, okay. And then she gave me another book, my friend Christina, called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman.
Good book.
Right? That right there immediately taught me the higher self, conscious self, and basic self, which this is going back 20 years. I was already looking at this stuff, but couldn't comprehend it, didn't understand it. And it wasn't until I met my wife, because she was next level. And you've met my wife, Erin, the redhead. She's next level with the spirituality way before we got together. But when someone is enlightened and you get together with that person, they drag you up that enlightenment scale very quickly. You can't avoid it pretty much.
Yeah. Either that or you leave.
Right. This vibration was so high that if I'm vibrating lower, it shakes you away, basically. So your vibrations have to match. And when we got together, it was like she was saying things that I was pulling back from back then, because we had this discussion. We just started dating. We had a discussion, something about the higher self. Now, her explanation of the higher self was a little bit different than what I had learned from Dan Millman's book. But basically, it was on the same page, and that's when I was like, wait a minute, you know about this stuff? So the more we started talking about it, it was weird. It was almost like my brain unlocked, immediately, because there was another person there that was at the same, she was way above me, but she could explain things the way that I understood. Uh-huh. And she was able to sit down and talk about it, not think I was weird or, this stuff is weird or anything, because let's face facts. I mean, Dorian Yates has come out and talk about a lot of things, and people think he's out of his mind. Kanye, another one that is nuts, but if you listen to Kanye talk, he's gone through the awakening and he understands it. But if you've never been through the awakening, you think everybody's crazy.
That's absolutely true. It's kind of funny you mentioned those people, because I used to think years ago that Kanye was kind of a nutbag. I was like, what is going on with this dude? But when you really start to look, and he even admits, he talks about, I think he's talked about being mentally unstable or something.
Bipolar.
What was that?
He's bipolar. He talks about
yeah. But I think maybe he's just very, very sensitive to his own sense of self, or some of the things that are going on. He's sometimes, I think, people like Elon Musk, I think, is very similar in the same way, except maybe not quite so, but in his own way. He's tapping into some other things that he's applying it towards. Building this highway thing under LA and all these other things. He's really, and if you go back, his family's whole history is very fascinating. They connect to Thomas Edison and all these different things. Okay. Yeah, it's really fascinating. Yeah, he comes from a family of inventor ownership, they're these emerging technologies from electricity to the light bulb to all these things. But
interesting. So I actually used to hate Kanye West. I did too until I realized. So when his mother died, he went through this period where that's where his awakening came. And it, I never wore his clothes, I never wore his sneakers. Now all I wear is his stuff because I understand. But literally, he came out with this distressed look, or this homeless look. I don't know if you must have seen it. People with holes in their shirt and stuff. He came out with that look with his line of clothes, and it's brilliant, but people don't understand it. That stuff was like $1,000 a t-shirt, right? So he would put this stuff out, and it looked like something you could buy at Walmart. You know what I mean? It was, you got it at the Goodwill. So all these famous people dressed up in all these expensive clothes, which made all the other people want them. And what happened was all that style trickled down into Target, Walmart, all these things. Now what happens is if you have Kanye's $1,000 shirt on or the Walmart shirt that's $3, you look exactly the same. Level people out in the end and make them all the same, so nobody felt above more than the other. They could all be the same, and that was his whole plan. And I was like, wait a minute, so you didn't just tear up some shirts and sell them for $1,000. There was a whole bunch of thought behind it and a plan. And I was like, wait a minute, you were trying to bring people together so that the person with no money feels like the person with money, and that way they're on common.
What a beautiful.
And I'm like,
now, did he come out? Did he come out and say, repeat this philosophy? Oh, okay.
Like he came out when he found out his shoes were reselling for thousands of dollars. He told Adidas to make more, release more, so that they're not as rare, so that everybody can get them and not have to pay for them. And I was like, that's not usually. They want that stuff to be rare because they want the money. He's telling them, I don't care if we lose money, put them out. Like, just get them out. And Adidas, they complied with it. And he brought all these, like, literally thousands and thousands of pairs of shoes to, like, Uganda and gave them to everybody out there. So they, although they were poor living in a village, they would look like Jay-Z and feel the same.
That's a really...
a guy, that's a jerk. You know what I mean?
That's a really fascinating way to use his influence and his popularity. Right. I think it's wonderful.
If you don't understand where he's coming from, you just think he's nuts. You know what I mean? Right. He's completely crazy going against the grain. But the problem is we all go with the grain because we're trained to go with the grain since birth. You know what I mean? I don't want to say brainwashed, but we're programmed. And then the rest of our lives, either we stay programmed or we start unprogramming, which is where you wind up on that path to enlightenment.
Yeah, with what they call being awake. When you finally awaken to who, at least to the trail of who you really are. Right. And I've said this before, and I think that it's true. And this is kind of what we're talking about. That most of the problems that we experience in this life, all the pain, the suffering, the things that we go through in our lives that most people complain about and most people don't like, is really due to not knowing who you really are. Right. When you don't know who you are, then you make strange choices. There are certain priorities that you have, like what clothes you wear, how home you live in, how much money you make, who your friends are, what status you have. All those things. When you know who you really are, some of those things most of those things just don't matter. Yeah, they just don't matter. And so
try to keep up with other people. Like I was just talking about this. We were talking about the gym. How your demographic we were looking at was like 18 to 40, right?
Right.
And many of the gyms nowadays, they go out there and they try to cater to like the housewives that have more money. I'm like, but here's the deal. The 18 and 19-year-olds that don't know who they are spending the money to try to keep up with everyone else. So, they're the ones that are going to get paid $500 on Friday. And they're going to go buy a $400 pair of sunglasses and wear them to the club that night because they want to keep up with them. You know what I mean? Like, whereas the housewives, they're not going to do that. They understand that those glasses are stupid and they even have the money to pay for them. I mean, it's just, once they understand who they are, maybe they don't like the expensive stuff or, to be broke anymore to try to keep up with the Joneses. But until that happens, they're just, I feel like everybody's out there floundering or flailing, just trying to find their way and not knowing, they don't know where to go because they don't know, everything comes from inside. You have every answer to everything you've ever needed inside.
That's right.
And they're looking for everything externally. And they don't understand that if they actually stopped and looked within, which is not an easy thing to do if you don't understand it, that they have all the answers. Like most people are like, Jerry, what do you think about this? And I'm like, I answer them now like, you know what the answer to that is. You're asking me because you want me to confirm it, but trust yourself. What's the answer to it? Blah, blah, blah. That's it. There you go. There's your
I totally 100% agree. I think it's a beautiful way to respond because you're right. I've said it for years. The Buddha said it. So many other people who've said that all the answers that you ever seek the answers are inside you. You have the answers. The universe. We are part of it. We're all one with this giant experiment that we call life. We're all one with the universe of sorts. I hate to sound like a yogi, but that's exactly what, to put it in the simplest words. When you get down to who you really are, we're really one energy. It's just, and we're just expressed into this life, into this physical form, and we perceive separation. And so, yes. And when we perceive separation and we act that way, then that's how we live. That's how, and it's hard to, I'm curious, like what was your path? Did you move toward this path of self-enlightenment based on some of the drug usage that you did, like some of the recovery that you went through? Did that give you, did that reflect back?
Yeah, not at all. Like when you're,
I know you talk about that publicly a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about being a heroin addict, addicted to heroin for 3 years. It really was like when I got off heroin, it really was not a spiritual thing. Like I wasn't spiritual at all. It was all about how do I get through to tomorrow and just be alive? You know what I mean? How do I change my mind? How do I change my thought process to make decisions to not be where I'm at? And it really was not anything spiritual whatsoever. I think that, it's been I mean, and I don't even really know. I can't pinpoint an exact time where it started, but it was. I think what happened was over time, like you keep accomplishing things and you have good things happen, and like you realize that they're very fleeting. You're on to the next thing. Like
Right.
they're not. They don't sit with you. Whereas some people hold on to that. They can win one medal in third grade for soccer. And they're a soccer star. You know what I mean? Like whereas the other person goes, okay, they throw the medal away. Okay, let's go play baseball now for the baseball season and see how far I can go with that. And I think that like as I realized that those things didn't really matter, and I was kind of moving along, just trying to get more and more and more experiences in life. I'm like, well, why are these things that everybody else deems important, like medals and wins, and like why do I not care about that? Because it was about the journey. Well, what is it about the journey? Well, because your journey's taking you to a place now that's showing you that you're literally the flea, a little speck here, and everything else out there, like, you know, that stuff, you know, to go back on what you were talking about, Metatron's cube, which I'm not sure if you know what Metatron's cube is.
No.
So the first time I heard this, I was like, so I started to get, this sounds so strange, but you're probably going to understand it. So I started to get these visions. Right between when you fall asleep and you're awake, I would see things and then start to hear things. And one of the things that I saw was it was a triangle, and the triangle shifted into the Star of David, and it kept shifting, and it had all these different pieces to it, and it was this 3D model spinning, and something said, every single piece of matter in the entire universe is made up of this. And I didn't know what it was. I was like, what the? I thought I was like, you know, maybe I saw something on TV before I fell asleep. But I remembered it when I got up in the morning. So I drew it. And my wife came in and she goes, Metatron's cube. And I said, what? Like, I thought I was thinking like a transformer, like Megatron. I'm like, what? Metatron's cube. She goes, it's, and she didn't really understand exactly what I said. I heard that this was what everything in the whole universe was made out of. When I looked it up, it says Metatron's cube and explains everything about it. I had never seen anything about it. I'd never come across anything about it. And I was like, something is happening. Like, something wants me to know that every single thing, including us, like, you know, this marker, everything is made of this one molecule that permanently links us for life.
So what is it? Is it an element? Is it a?
I think my question is like, it's not an element. It's like, it's so microscopic that how the hell do they even know about it? Like, we don't have machines that can find this and measure it. So how do we know this thing exists? But it's true. I mean, a lot of it comes down to like the universal language of mathematics.
Right.
Basically, if an alien came here, the only way we're going to be able to talk to them is through mathematics. And mathematics hold a truth, and we've talked before about freemasonry, where mathematics is something that can measure pretty much everything in the entire universe, but it's a way of communication. It's a way of how things are built. It's basically like a code that we have, and like I still don't understand it. Like, I'm still learning about it all the time, but everything basically boils down to these codes. It's like a coded code that we have that makes us what we are. And I thought, it goes even further to say something like, like plastic. Like, we have manipulated those elements and stuff to make this plastic. Well, where did they come from? Most of those things are in our body already that make us up, those elements. So I'm like, so even we're attached to the plastic bottles. Like a tree, because it's alive, people think, well, it's alive, but we're attached to it. The thing that we build our houses out of, we built it out of things that are basically made up of what we're made up of.
Absolutely.
Like, everything is made up of. So now what you have is the matrix. You have something that's created out of basically one thing to give you this reality that it's all these other things, these other things that make up these other things, but it's based on that one thing. Like, so now where does this come from? And that's kind of the point about now. I'm stuck at, like, where does this come from? Because there really is no explanation. There's some people explain it, God, the Big Bang, like this. There's a gigantic area out there in space that's beyond galaxies, beyond however infinite it is. And we're trying to boil it down to basically we had, this one thing that created us. Like, we don't really know. We have no idea.
We have no idea. It's to the concept, just the concept of an infinite universe is really beyond really comprehension in most human standards. Because, and if that's the case, then we have to accept that there are some certain things that we're probably just not going to be able to put into words, right? They're not going to, these are concepts that don't really fit into the human experience. We can understand them philosophically, like this is infinity, but try to describe this, try to really get your mind around that. And when and to know that, so then if you take the concept even further and say, okay, well, there's an infinite universe and we are a part of that infinite universe. And we, so that therefore by association, we're going to be infinite as well. Right. Not the bodies necessarily, but even our bodies, they just may transform into other things and, and go on. Like, I could be a tree tomorrow, right? Like when I die, my molecules, even though the consciousness who is me may not be the tree. Right. But then again, maybe so. Maybe I am part of that tree too, because
this thing we don't know. There's so much that we don't know. But I think for people to shoot it down and think it's stupid or crazy and stuff, like, My thing is to think that this stuff is not real would be crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because scientists have already, like for an instance, another thing, things that, blow my mind. Scientists have absolutely 100% said they cannot figure out where our thoughts come from. They know that they're not created in the human brain. So they're like, and they're still studying. They're like, where do these thoughts come from? So now when a scientist says that, who's very matter of fact about this is the way things are, we understand and we know how we can comprehend things, and they can't comprehend it. So now where do our thoughts come from? If it's in some infinite place like our brain's an antenna and it comes from our higher self or wherever it comes from, that means that there's more to all this stuff than even we could even comprehend on top of that.
There is a school of thought that says, and there's some certain degree of empirical evidence that strongly suggests that, yeah, we are downloading information from, just like a computer, we are absolutely downloading information from a higher, if you want to call it a higher consciousness or your true self, whatever you want to call it. There is a connection, there is this consciousness connection that we have with these bodies. These are just, I see my life, and I was explaining to somebody else earlier this week that my body is really just a tool that I use in this life to be able to have the experience of this life. Like that's all it really is. Like that's why I'm not afraid of death anymore. I'm not really. Right. I've tried to kill myself twice and it didn't work. So I know there's something beyond that. There's a consciousness there's beyond that controls this, that really expresses itself into this physical form. And and so because of that, I know that, well, my true self, if you want to call it, I like to call it my inner being, my true self, whatever it is, but it is beyond this body, is more than this body. And I can't kill it. I can't. And so I think that if it's infinite, and then to me it feels like that we have to either accept that we have this other part to this life, if you will, and if that's the case, then there's a lot of stuff we probably just aren't going to really be able to put our minds around, right? Like
to get to the point you're talking at, you have to take your ego and you have to destroy your ego.
Right.
Like you cannot be there because you're not going to believe that you're this little piece of this big puzzle. You think you are the puzzle when your ego is like that. You know what I mean? It's hard for people, like you have to have an ego because it's there essentially to keep you safe. It's there for defense mechanisms when it needs to be there. But at the same time, a lot of people, they live in their ego. They feed their ego. They are their ego. So they're never going to look at this thing as a bigger thing. Have you ever taken like any psychedelics?
I have. So here's an interesting thing. So I really want to do an ayahuasca journey. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to see if you've done anything like that. I really want to do that this year. But I have tried DMT, just in small amounts. I smoked it and I could not get enough to give me the full the full journey, the full trip. So because it makes you just woozy, man. Like but I saw fractals and you get and time does not pass the same. It's not. It's you. I mean, it was a interesting and kind of awesome experience. It looked like
scary, or was it?
No, not at all. Not to me. I was waiting for it. I want this. I want this whooshing effect. This take me away and detach myself from my body. I've heard these things. I want this. I want to feel I need to feel the separation. I need to understand. For some reason, it calls to me. So you know what I mean. I tried acid when I was this year at EDC, and some of these. It was like this pharmaceutical grade, like gel tabs, not the other ones. And man, I'm going to tell you, I did not get anything, zero. And I'm like, and I have talked to people about this, and I wondered if maybe it has something to do because I meditate every day. I'm very, very dedicated to my spiritual pursuit, my own personal enlightenment. I write. My writing is very spiritual for me personally. So I write every day. It's one of the times I look forward to the most. I really take all these things that I write about and talk about very, very seriously for myself. I don't expect anybody else to. But for me, I do, and it has meaning for me. So when I went there, I don't do these things just to like go out there and like get high and have fun. Like that's not what.
Fun. You know what I mean? No. It's like, so LSD is a synthetic, which doesn't unlock the same things in your brain as DMT and mushrooms.
Okay.
So the mushrooms are the first thing that I did about.
I wanted to try those. That's what I wanted to try next.
Now that was something because of course my addiction passed and stuff. I was very worried about it triggering something in me.
It's supposed to help.
Yeah, well, it was weird because I don't know what's going to trigger that pass because it's like I've been clean for 16 years. I've never had a relapse, so I don't know what the triggers are other than me wanting to get high to forget something. So moving towards the mushrooms, it was more about cosmic knowledge and learning more information than getting high. So I had a shaman come to the house, and we sat down, we set the intentions, we took the psilocybin, and then it kicked in. Now, what was interesting was he was locked to me. He took it too. So he could see what I was seeing and was literally walking me through stuff, which I was like, how are you seeing exactly what I'm seeing? Because of course he's a shaman. He can move his I don't want to say higher self, but he can move into that plane where we were, but we're both in the same plane, which means we were detached from our bodies in that plane together, still talking to each other, going, holy cow, like look at all this stuff. So once we got to this certain spot, I looked around, and the thing that you were saying about your human brain not comprehending, I was like almost like floating in this area, and it had like, again, I cannot explain it because there is no explanation for what I saw. I mean, I remember telling my wife who was there, she was witnessing the whole thing, I said, why hasn't anybody ever painted this or drew this or like, this is unbelievable. But when I snapped out of it, I couldn't, you can't, it's impossible. Your brain can't comprehend what you saw to put it on paper. So while we're in this state, which is called hyperspace, which is actually where we go when we die, some people call it heaven, whatever, but this was the more of the real, not the mythological, not the legend, like this is what happens. So I'm there with all of these colors kind of floating, looking up, like kind of just in the middle of this thing floating around, and I'm seeing like these flashes of light, and it looks like an electrical impulse shooting in like different directions. So once we were there, the shaman said, now ask the question, ask whatever questions. The only question I had at that point was, why are we here? You know what I mean? Like that's the big question for me. Why are we all here right now? Not in the hyperspace, but why are we humans here on Earth? And it said basically, it showed me, it pulled me right towards the thing. It wasn't anything spoken. It pulled me right towards where those electrical impulses were shooting around. And it showed that that was information that was our lives that was downloaded into the, it's not called the acaric files.
I've heard something about this.
It's these all of the universe's information sits somewhere that supposedly we can access it with our brain if we know how to. Well, that's where I was. And it was showing that basically all the stuff that we learn, that we feel, all these lessons, everything gets downloaded from our conscious directly into this space. And it's infinite. It can hold everybody's consciousness for the rest of eternity. And that is where all this information goes, like all the experiences, all the everything. So our whole point of being here is because up there, which I say up there like heaven, but up there, all we know is love. That's the only thing that we can actually feel and know. So we don't know pain. We don't know agony. We don't know any struggle. We don't know this stuff. So we make this kind of pact up there, this agreement, this contract to come down here in these human bodies and go through all this shit so we can then give it back to the universe and upload it. And it does, I don't know what it does. I don't know if it helps somebody. I have no idea what it does. But the universe is putting this whole charade on. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so you're trying to tell me this is where I go when I die? And the shaman is like, yes. And I'm like, I feel fantastic. Like, if this is it, okay, like, let's, then you're not scared the next day to die. You don't care because you're like, look, this whole thing is connected. Like, I'm here for a specific purpose, but I'm not here to be Jerry, to go out and party, to go out and, and chase girls. Like, that's not, it is about that, but it's not. Like, there's a higher purpose for everything that you're doing here. So when I snapped out of this, like, another thing that was really cool was, we were talking about chaos and order. Okay. Sometimes there's order and chaos. And we were talking, he said, go outside while you're on the mushrooms. You can go outside and look at the grass. Well, I just went on the deck and looked around. You can see all the blades of grass kind of going all these different directions because you're very amplified. And he said, it looks like just crazy, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, but it grows like that specifically so that each blade of grass gets some sun so it can grow. It can't just all grow like this. So that chaos that you perceive is actually not chaos. It's actually order. So the next time you think that there's some kind of mass chaos going on in your life, it very well could be the way that the order is situating itself to get the outcome that you need and not what you want.
Yeah, I see chaos and order almost the same as finding meaning. So order would be the equivalent of meaning, and chaos would be the equivalent of no meaning, and everything has meaning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything has meaning. So therefore, everything really has some order in its own right. There is. I think the idea of chaos is interesting. I think that just means you
don't understand the order. Or understand that there is order, they call it chaos. They created that word because they don't understand what they're looking at.
Precisely.
Human brain understand that nature is doing something that we're a lot. I shouldn't say we're more advanced than nature because nature trumps us every time. But we kind of put things in a certain order that we know is normal. Right. And anything that's not normal we perceive as chaos. But that doesn't mean that the way a tree grows and the roots grow, that you may go, that makes no sense. It's growing this way and the tree goes that way. Well, that is why it's growing, is to cause that tree to be what it needs to be, and not what you think or perceive it should be, So
it sounds like you got, after your experience, your psilocybin experience, it was rewarding. It enlightened you in some way.
I didn't like the way it felt. Like, it was something that I was wondering, like, am I going to want to do this all the time? Like, I didn't like the way I felt. Like, you feel like you're on ecstasy, cocaine. You feel like you're on everything at the same time, and all of a sudden you're just whooshed away but you're still got 1 foot in this reality. So you have 1 foot in that reality, 1 foot in this one. So, we actually recorded it, but we didn't put it up because I didn't realize at the time, like the shaman was doing breathing exercises and he was doing different things. And I'm just sitting there. And my wife was like, now I know why you got away with being a heroin addict for so long, because you were tripping your balls off. Normally you're having a conversation, you got up and got a glass of water. And she was like, the shaman's sitting there on the floor and he can't move. She was like walking around and stuff. I was like, I don't know.
Maybe that was what, because when I took, I think my buddy said, when I took the LSD, he said, only take one because these are really potent. Because he had used them and he was tripping balls off of one, so I took one the first day. I said, man, I got maybe the colors were brighter. I'm like, and then the next day I took two, and then I was like, maybe the colors were a little brighter. I was like, so I don't know. Because I was at EDC at a festival. I was thinking I'm going to be able to sit back, enjoy some music, and see some fucking cool laser shows and see some fucking cartoons and shit. Nope, none of that. I had a great time but I always have a great time at these festivals with the music. I love dancing and I love the music. But I think I probably would have been more like you, get up, get a glass of water. But I was hoping for something inside me tells me that I need to do an ayahuasca experience, but I also would like to try some mushrooms as well, and not for any kind of high or anything like that, but for the inner experiment, the inner journey.
You get out of it what your intentions are. So you set the intentions before you actually take it.
Right.
Like some people like to go out with their friends in the woods and they trip balls and they hang out by the campfire. They're not going to see anything profound. They're not going to get any information. But this mushroom, this spore has been around since basically the earth was created. Like we don't even know if it came from another planet and landed on a meteor. We don't know where it came from. We just know that those spores contain so much information over thousands of years that we can access that, but you have to actually look to access that. It's like having different doors. You decide which door you want to open to get which result you want. If you want to party, you act like you want to party, you put the intention, you open the door, you don't get the same effect. And when you're sitting down in your house with a shaman walking through things with you and you're not trying to be high, you're looking at the overall experience to try to find something, it changes the experience. Another door you open instead of the party one. I didn't understand that because there's a ceremony even with the ayahuasca that you sit down and they set the intentions before you even take the ayahuasca itself. And now DMT I haven't done. I actually have some on the way. And that's going to be like my next thing. But I think the ayahuasca thing, it was very brought to light by Kentucky Ayahuasca, which was a TV show that was on. It's already been canceled because so many people were like, I want to try this. But I think, honestly, and I do believe that the authorities and people out there do not want us to get our hands on this stuff.
I think that everybody who goes into politics should actually do a journey. That's what I think. I think there'd be less war. I think that people would have a better understanding of each other.
I mean, that mushroom trip wasn't like the biggest thing ever for probably most people. But when I got out of it, and plus my anxiety and depression went away completely. It disappeared. Which now the FDA is actually, they fast-tracked it. The FDA is now in clinical trials in humans using psilocybin. And
there's a couple states. There's a couple states where it's legal now.
They have ketamine therapy here in Fairfax. You actually go to a doctor and they administer ketamine.
I don't know much about ketamine.
I used it for a party drug. I didn't know it had anything to do with like depression and stuff. But they're learning that some of these things that we deemed as drugs before, like party drugs, are actually medicine.
Right.
Like THC is being looked at now as like almost like a miracle cure for so many things. And it's a natural medicine. Like I've done THC where, I was able to tap into a part of my brain where I saw like these kaleidoscope things. And it was just these shapes over and over again. And when I told my buddy, he was like, you're at that level already? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, that is like, it's part of enlightenment, but it usually doesn't happen until you're basically like you're a shaman yourself. It's like you're seeing the kaleidoscope shapes. He's like, those are the shapes of the universe.
When I did some DMT the first time, about 2.5 years ago, something like that, and I was laying on my bed in Pittsburgh, and I had, without knowing it, after hearing what you just said, without knowing it, I had set the intention. I knew it because I had set the intention. I was going to, I wanted a inner experience. I wanted to, because I was going through a lot of shit, right? Like I got a divorce and all this shit, and I was really, and so I figured this is the time, Tad. This is your life is speaking to you. You're supposed to make this journey. You're supposed to do this. So I'm sitting there on my bed, and it looked, all of a sudden, it felt like, visually, it looked like the ceiling and everything, it was like water coming down. It just looked like that at first, like the sort of small visual distortion, and then all of a sudden, it looked like everything was melting down, and the next thing you know, I'm seeing fractals, man. Everything's just twisting into different shapes, and it's just like the whole like reality was melting. It was the most. It was the most wicked. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want this to go away. I'm like, I want to see what's next.
Because reality is what we make it, right? We build it in our minds. Like my reality is different than yours. I mean, although we think it's all the same, but realistically, if we make it, what is reality then? Reality is something we don't understand because we each create our own reality.
That's right.
There's something beyond that, which that is what the ayahuasca and the DMT is, supposed to be able to get you there. Now, how long did it last? Like 15, 20 minutes? Or
it felt like 15 minutes, but it was really quite a bit longer. I know I was milking it. I know I was trying to stay in the state, and I really feel like, this is just me, I really feel like, because especially after what you said about setting the intention, I really feel like I was able to elongate it, because it's only supposed to last 15, 20 minutes at most. But I know it was a bit longer than that. It was more like an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
And so it lessened in intensity, and you could tell it just sort of starts to fade. The next thing you know, and I'm like, no. And I remember focusing in on some of these objects, these things that was going on, and then it would get more vibrant. It would just start. It was just like I was able to like pull myself back into this almost sort of thing. I never got to the point where I got whooshed away. Like I heard this expression, people go, "Oh yeah," when they took DMT or they did some kind of like ayahuasca journey or something, they would or psilocybin. It was almost like they leave their body. They had this out of body experience. That's what I was hoping for. That's what I'm looking forward to. But I don't think I would have been ready for it yet. To be honest, I think that my life has sort of staged me. So like I know I'm ready, man. I know I'm.
Did you fast for it and stuff like that?
I did not. I did not fast. I didn't do any kind of purging or any kind of cleansing. I didn't know anything about that at the time.
Oh, okay.
So
I definitely I fasted even from water for 24 hours before the mushrooms.
So now what's the deal? Why do the fasting with that?
So for the way I understood it, the shaman told me to fast. He didn't say to water fast, but when somebody says fast, I automatically include that in there. But I'm just stupid like that. But a lot of people, so depending on if you drink beer, if you do drugs, if you abuse your body has to be cleared by the ayahuasca and the mushrooms and stuff first, which is what they call the purge. You wind up throwing up. You wind up maybe shitting yourself. Like that's the purge. Now, Dorian had that experience the first time he did ayahuasca. He was throwing up and everything. Now, the next time you go, if you're eating like some people eat a very vegan diet the week before, vegan diet the week before.
Yeah, that he mentioned this.
I didn't have stomach issues. My chakras weren't as blocked as they would have been. Like you can feel the thing moving through you, the mushrooms. You can feel it opening the areas in the chakras to where you feel like it's even muscle pains and strains and shit that you have go away on the psilocybin. It's not a pain killing effect. It's opening up these blockages so the energy can flow.
The energy can move.
Now, flowing. So it takes care of these blockages, these injuries, these things that's going on. So like, if you have a stomach full of, shitty food and your body's like all these chemicals and stuff, it just purges it out. And it takes away from the experience because it takes some of the energy away from it to try to purge it. So I was like, when I hit this mushroom, I want this thing to hit me as hard as it possibly can. You know what I mean? So that my first experience, like, it's not like a dud. You know what I mean? Like, so I was like, I don't care. I'll fast. And even after I was done, I didn't eat probably for 3 or 4 more hours after that. Like I came down from the mushrooms and I felt spent. Like I felt tired. I felt drawn. I felt like, like I'd run a marathon or something. Like energy-wise, you feel spent because it's pulling everything out of you to bring you to this place. And when it shoves you back in your human body, you're like, well, this sucks. Like this, this is not where I want to be at, But at the same time, you're like, wait a minute. The mushrooms gave me that. DMT is supposed to be the next level, and then ayahuasca is like that final level. So there are different kind of levels, and I'm like, let me go through the levels. Like, some people go right to the ayahuasca, some people never. I'm like, do the mushrooms first, the DMT, then the ayahuasca. Take it level by level, like I would anything else, and then take the information that I'm learning and then apply it to whatever's going on in my life. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to the ayahuasca ceremony and the DMT. Like it's like you said, they're people that get completely blown out of their bodies. Which I was actually with. So again, this is. As you start to vibrate higher, you attract other high vibrating individuals.
Yeah.
So I went to Real Weights for Real Heroes last year, or was it the year before, in Ohio with Mark Lobliner and those guys. And I just found out that my friend Rich Greenbaum, I don't know if you remember Rich.
Okay, I don't remember, no.
A lot of female bodybuilders back in the 90s and stuff, had just passed away. Like he just passed away like earlier that morning. So I kind of was like a little off, and I sat by myself. And these people came up that were like fans of mine that sat down with me, like maybe 10 people. We had this small little circle. And one guy, all he wanted to tell me about was when he was in the military and he stepped on an improvised explosive device and it blew up. It blew him out of his body. He was up in the air and saw himself underneath it. And when he hit the ground, he looked around. His friend was over there. His body was over there. And then he gets sucked back into his body.
Oh, wow.
Said that. The other guy goes, hey, I had this experience. He goes, I got to a party late one night. He goes, all the weed was gone. All the cocaine was gone. He goes, they had a big bag of mushrooms. He's like, fuck it. So he ate the whole bag. He was sitting in the chair where everybody else was partying. He goes, and I got pulled directly out of the chair, through the roof, he goes, I went straight, like I was being pulled like on a string, right out of my body. He goes, I saw everything leave. He goes, the next thing you know, he's like, I'm like floating in space, like looking around like, how the hell am I here? How am I going to get back? And I'm thinking like, that's not the experience I had, but he ate a whole bag.
Right.
So apparently it's dose dependent the more you take, but he also probably wasn't the type of person that wouldn't believe that would happen.
Right.
Like he already had that type of mentality that spiritual maybe there's more to it than he knows, and he already had that openness in his mind.
Yeah, he had the inclination to want to, yeah.
I would probably freak out if I get yanked out of my body that fast, not expecting it. You know what I mean? Like,
they say that the more resistant you are during the process, like during ayahuasca, that it can be quite frightening.
Yeah.
And so when people resist, but once you give in, because a friend of mine just had one of my friends. I call him. I've had him on my show before. I call him DMT Mike because he loves the stuff. But he did a journey, an ayahuasca journey, and no, it was ayahuasca. It was a DMT journey with a shaman, and he said that it was really he said the first bit before you get pulled away, almost like a rocket ship. He said it feels like you're in a rocket ship. You just get pulled out of your body. He said it's frightening as fuck. He says for me it was really frightening because there's that part of you when you're losing your ego, when that is stripped away, it's frightening. He's like, oh, am I going to come back? Am I going to come back? Am I going to come back? And then he said, as soon as you go, you know what? Fuck it. I just got to go. He said that as soon as he said that, as soon as he sort of released himself from that, he said, whoosh, he was gone. And he was in this other place. And he said, you can really know, he's like, who you think you really are, you're not. He's like, you're just not. He's like, He came, and I coached him for several years, and he's a great guy. And he was always very manic and always very high anxiety kind of a person. And he's quite a bit less than that today. Like today, when he came, and I said, well, describe the experience. Like, how would you describe it? And he said, he says, I don't worry about the stuff I used to worry about. And now he sends me that he's all into appreciating nature. He's in a very deep appreciation mode in his life. And so I think it's had wonderful effects for him. It gave him a whole different perspective. Now he did say that now when he meditates, it's like he could smoke a little weed and meditate. And he said, I could go almost right back to those states. He says it's easier.
Supposedly the monks can control their brains to release DMT naturally.
Yeah.
There are many monks that can do that. So, and apparently, like when we're going to die, DMT gets released
big time.
To help, kind of move over to that. Now, if he keeps doing DMT, it's possible that he's creating a pathway in his brain that is now something like our muscles. We create that muscle.
And you could control it.
Back into it, and so you can control it. The weed might give him just that little bit of unlocking his brain enough to.
Yeah, he said he doesn't do a lot. He just enough for him to sort of pull away, and then he relaxes, and then he said, I'll catch this feeling. I'll catch it like a wave. You catch it, and then I can ride it. And he says, then I can go away again. He goes, for sure. And sometimes it's sometimes I can do it for like 20 minutes. He said it's pretty awesome, and other times it's just for a few minutes. But he has said that over time, like 6 months, a year, it's harder and harder. It's almost like he said you forget, and he thinks it's because I would agree with him. That's because the longer you stay in your ego, it's a little bit of a magnet. I think for some of this, it's hard to probably when do you plan on to? Do you have a timeline when you're going to plan to do?
I look at it like this. Ayahuasca, DMT, mushrooms. You don't find them; they find you when it's time.
That's a good way to look at it.
Like when it's here, it's here. Like that's why I'm not scared to try it as soon as it's here. Like I'm nervous, don't get me wrong, because it's something new, it's something unknown. Will I come back? Will I not come back? Will I make myself weird for the rest of my life? Who knows? But I'm scared of what may happen, but I'm looking forward to it enough to where I'm like, react and not talk myself out of it.
I know the feeling because that's kind of the way I feel about the ayahuasca journey. But I intend to do one. I know them. I feel this is going to sound weird probably, but I feel like I'm supposed to do it before the end of this year. And so my plan is. So because of that, I was messaging Dorian Yates because I was intended on my birthday is June 5th. So that was the same weekend as his Costa Rica trip. And when I had him on my show, several months ago, he invited me to go do it. And so I was going to go, but I had to judge a show that weekend. I was in the Dominican, I think, judging a show. And so I couldn't go, that weekend. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll catch it next year. And so so I messaged him maybe a couple of days ago, about a week or so ago. And I said, hey, how was the trip? Or was it good? Because I said, I caught some of the pictures and videos you posted on Instagram. It would look like it was pretty cool. How was he? He goes, oh, it's life-changing, man. Because he does it every year. Like, he does this shit and it's a small group of people, like 10 to 15 people max. And he does it at a resort. So it's like, so it's a nice experience. He said you get good food and it's a nice experience. And he has the shamans come and they cleanse you and they do all the things. And they do 4 journeys in a row, day after day. 1, 2. And I said, why 4? He said, I thought you just need 1. He said, for most people are really resistant. So you don't fully let go. And then he said, by the time you get to the 4th, the last one, he said, people just have really life-changing. He said after 2 or 3, we found that it wasn't quite as impactful on people's lives as the 4th. And he was really into changing people's lives with this stuff. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. So then I said, well, and so he told me it was a good one. He says, but we're doing it again in November. I said, cool. So I'm like, okay, well,
that's before the end of the year. There you
go.
I'm
like, yeah, include me in, man. I'm like, so I'm really kind of looking forward to it. I'll tell you what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it with my brother, my twin brother, because he said that he would be interested in maybe doing it. He's very spiritually aware, is where he meditates every day, but I don't know if he's quite on the same interests that I have. Right. I don't know. We've only talked about, but he definitely shares much of the same kinds of spiritual awareness and beliefs that I do. But I would love just because I'm an identical twin, I feel spiritually and personally intimately connected with my brother. I don't know if you're not a twin, you probably don't understand, like some people wouldn't understand this connection. It's beyond like being connected to a wife or a mother or a father. He's me.
Right, yeah.
He's me. And everything I want, everything in this life, I can't imagine walking through this life without knowing at least that he's out there.
So what's interesting is you have the availability to understand and feel what we should all feel about one another, because we're all connected at that cellular level.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though we don't look the same, we weren't born from the same parents, you actually feel that.
Yes, I do.
And most people can't feel that. They can comprehend it, but they can't feel what you feel.
The funny thing is really, it's really perceptive of you to mention that, because I never even put it together like that before until just now, so thank you. Because it's exactly the way I feel. I have tried to describe to people. They say, "Why are you so loving? How come you?" I will tell my clients. I'll say, "Look, I only accept certain clients. I only accept the one because everybody that I accept, they're my family.
Right.
I want to love you. I want to participate in your life in some way that you feel acceptable. I want, and anyone that I meet, man, I mean it when I tell people I love them. Like obviously I don't have the same intimate connection that I have with them, but it's a feeling that I have. It's like I know you. I know who you really are. Like I know who you are. Like, and that's what I feel with my brother. But I feel it really viscerally. So so when something's going, and all I do when I connect with somebody, when I talk to somebody, is I look for that. It's an energy. It's a feeling. I look for it, and I can find it. Some people are tough, and it's usually if they're angry or if they're upset or if but I can still. It's not. I've been getting better and better at ignoring that. Going, okay, because that's just a vibration. That's just the energy that they're giving off. It doesn't. I don't have to imitate it back.
Right.
I don't have to reciprocate that, so I can usually find it, but usually I have to move away because they don't, because that's the first thing that people want to do is they want to imitate back what energy. So and when you present to somebody, if somebody's spewing hate at you and all you're doing is pushing out love at them, that gets them really pissed off.
Yeah.
It's like.
Absolutely. The vibrations don't match.
It
repels you. It repels you, wants to pull you apart instead of like magnetic.
So has this journey so far, and it's a wonderful journey. I feel it's kind of exciting.
Crazy. Like I never thought I'd be in this situation. Like I grew up we were Lutheran. Like my parents believe in God and stuff like that, and they didn't force us to go to church. They made us hey, make your own choices. Do what you need to do. And for the longest time, I wouldn't say that I didn't believe in God, but everything that I had been fed growing up about religion and everything else just didn't make any sense. It just didn't Me
neither.
None of it, I want to say it was almost like I was watching a movie.
Right.
Like you're okay, it's the way it's supposed to be, but why? It doesn't make any sense. The spiritual stuff, for some reason, makes sense to me. Like it feels right as opposed to the other stuff that, like God, is he a guy with a long white beard sitting No, I highly doubt that's what it is, right? You say, you're all God's creatures. Well, how do we know he doesn't look like a fox? A fox is his creature. God created man in his image. Well, how come I don't have a long white beard and long white hair? Why doesn't my wife have a long white beard? Like, you can take everything literal, or you can take it as like a...
There's an interesting twist if you think about the metaphor of God making people in his or her own image. I have to use that kind of neutered down pronouns because I hate pronouns when it comes to spirituality. It really, really fucks things. People get all jacked up about it, but because is God male or female? Well, God's not neither, right?
Right.
It's and if you believe that we participate with this energy, this ultimate reality that we call God, and that we are that, and this is what I believe. Then God in His own image is what? When you're reflecting your own image, what are you doing? You're looking into a mirror. You're looking at yourself.
Right.
So God is yourself. And I believe that we are the God force. I believe that. That's who we are. Now, I am not singularly the God force, but I am collectively part of that collective. The universe collective that we call the universe, God, the ultimate spiritual, reality, whatever you want to call it. It's so, words are so confined.
So, like, some people say energy source.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, or the origin of the energy, like, it's all the word for God. I mean, it's all the same word, but as humans, we want to comprehend what we know. We don't want to think that there's something so spiritually above us, or like there's an alien out there. We don't think that we're the pinnacle of life. Right. So we, of course, have to make God look exactly like us. Whatever floats your boat, we're all going to wind up in the same place. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to argue.
Right.
Do your thing. If that's what gets you through, fine. I'm going down this journey. You go down that journey. Maybe we'll pair up in the end, but bottom line is we're all here for a reason. If that's how you believe that, that's probably what you're supposed to believe. Like, that's probably why you're here, supposed to do that. Maybe you're not supposed to be an enlightened one. You know what I mean? Maybe you're supposed to have another job that I don't understand or we don't understand. It's
kind of funny that you have that perspective, because I have found, at least in my travels, in my spiritual travels, if you will, so far, that people who are on this journey of enlightenment, and we call it enlightenment. Again, I'm not trying to separate myself or make myself better than anybody else. That's not what but people who are on this kind of journey, looking for this kind of meaning, tend to have a perspective like this. You do your thing. It's okay for you to believe what you want to believe. Right. It's not wrong or right. It's just what you believe. I'm going to believe what I believe. I see the universe. It's really about how do you choose to describe the universe, or describe your experience, or describe the reality, and does it have meaning for you and power in your life? And I've always said it for years, and I still say it. Hey, man, if Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever it is that you want to believe, the rock god, whatever it is, if it has power for you and it has meaning for you in your life and moves you in some way, in some meaningful way, then go for it. Believe it. Do it. And it's real. It's real for you. Right? So, but don't think for a second that your meaning is your truth is my truth too.
Right. But people, as humans, they want to control other humans.
Absolutely.
It's like human nature. So they want you to agree with them. It's like, look, we don't have to agree. It's cool. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense to me why people want to argue about, like, if you want to think I'm crazy for saying the stuff I'm saying, fine. Think I'm crazy. I think you're crazy for not taking the ayahuasca. I think you're crazy for not believing in something more than you.
I also believe that the reason why most try to get what I call consensus of belief is because they want validation for their beliefs. That somehow, and I don't think they're looking and some people really vehemently violently defend their beliefs. And I always think to myself, well, why do you care what somebody else thinks?
Well, I think what's happened is they themselves feel either one of two things. They feel shortcomings because they feel like the other person feels like they're above them because they're elevated because they know something they don't.
Right.
But the other way, I think that honestly people know the truth and they're just fighting it. They don't want to be crazy themselves. You know what I mean? They don't want to think. I mean, I've seen things like, they call them shadow people, I guess. It's like those black images, like,
Oh, yeah.
Well, Aaron and I were sitting here one night and this thing kind of walked by us. It was like 7 feet tall, just walked right by us and you could see it.
You both saw it?
Yeah, I looked at her, she looked at me, I said, what the hell was that? And we just kind of looked at each other like...
like, what the fuck was that?
I mean, it is what it is. Like, we saw something, we both saw it together. There's no, like, the way that the light was, nothing could come in the room to make that, no cars outside or anything like that. It literally looked like a human form. It walked straight by, and we're on the second floor. So it wasn't somebody walking by down there. It walked by, went right into the wall, and disappeared. And, we both looked at each other. Neither one of us were scared. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know what it was, but I do know that just because I can't see or comprehend other things out there...
doesn't mean it's not there.
Like, my dog and I were sitting there. I don't think the house is haunted. I don't think that's what it is. I think when you become more towards the enlightened path, I think these other things, and I don't think they're like evil. I think they're just,
it's just what it is.
Whatever it is, they know that you are starting to get down to understand where they are. So they wind up kind of popping up and showing up and trying to like communicate with you. Like one night I was sitting on the couch with my dog Brady, and it was real late. Aaron was in bed, and like where our kitchen is, you have to come out of the kitchen, around, and then come to the living room. His tire came rolling around the kitchen, hooked the corner, came around, and rolled into the living room where we were. His little toy. I looked at him. He looked at me. He looked in there. He looked at me.
He's like,
see that thing or that person or whatever? And I'm like, what do you see? And he's just looking. I'm like, I just went back to watching TV. Like, it doesn't bother me. So I'm like, to me, these things are not scary because I understand that, like, we can only see and perceive what our human brains and minds allow us to.
That's right.
Through our senses, you know what I mean? So, like, we have 5 senses. Without those 5 senses, we don't know anything. But with only those 5 senses, we don't know everything. We can't comprehend everything. So it doesn't scare me because I'm like, it's been here all along my whole life. It hasn't hurt me yet, whatever it is.
Well, I think you're...
See it.
I think actually that's very astute because I believe that's kind of how it works. That as you raise your vibration, if you will, as you become more aware of the larger reality, so to speak, of this not just the limited perception, because we only have like 5 senses, right? Like we have a limited way to perceive the universe, but there's so much more going on, more than likely.
You have a new thing that scientists are working on this week that they can prove that there's a mirrored alternate universe.
Oh, I believe in multidimensional. I believe in the multidimensional universe. I believe in that.
It's great. I mean, I also believe in it. I believe that right now, like, I have black hair. In another universe, I have gray hair. In another universe, I have blonde hair. Whatever. In another universe,
I'm Mr. Olympia.
Unbelievably, that may have happened. Science, who's very about like this is what this is because we can see it, has now found a way to prove an actual mirrored universe. And it only takes about like 9 seconds where they have this matter that gets destroyed in one and not in the other because it can pass over.
Right.
They're like, because there's something else there. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, science is catching up to it now. Now this is starting to get interesting because now people can't argue back that it doesn't exist if science proves it because that's what they listen to. And with the stuff that we already know and felt, they're getting confirmation. They'll fight it for a little while and more data will come out. And eventually I think what's happening now is we're seeing a leaking of information very slowly to the public. Like even this ayahuasca thing, like nobody knew what ayahuasca was a year ago.
Right,
now
right.
everybody knows what it is. That TV show that came out is really responsible for it. But people are looking at other things. Like, I don't know if you've seen all the alien stuff that's on TV.
I've seen some of it, yeah.
Ghost stuff, paranormal. This stuff didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
But now it's on all over the place because we're getting desensitized to it over and over, that they're leaking out documents. They're leaking out information. They're leaking out all this.
There was something recently I saw about Area 51. People want to storm it or something. I don't know.
I hope they don't because they're all going to get killed. Like they think that, like, oh, power to the people. Listen, you have a military installation with its top secret access. You're going to cross that line that says you will be shot on sight. They think they're all. I'm like, listen. They have that stupid gun that I don't remember. It's like it rotates.
The Gatling gun. It's like a Ruklux.
That could probably kill all those people. Just one of those. We don't even know what they have in that installation that could take all of. They could vaporize them. We don't know. I'm like, here's the deal. You're getting confirmation over and over again. People are coming out talking about Area 51, talking about we have alien craft, talking about the president knows about it, talking about all this stuff, and all these classified documents are now being leaked out a little bit at a time. If they didn't want the information out there, they would never leak it.
Right.
There wouldn't be these shows. They would
so
talk,
you think it's just like this slow
desensitization, so that when it finally happens, people are not like, oh, I can't
out.
believe it. Like War of the Worlds, when that happened like years ago, people lost their minds.
Yeah, scare people.
So now what's happening is the ayahuasca brings enlightenment. The ayahuasca makes you understand that there's more to it than just us. So it actually kind of takes religion away with the ayahuasca because you realize it's not God like you perceive it. So now all of this stuff's starting to come out now, and you're seeing the consciousness shift in the entire collective.
I believe that.
More people are waking up. They're talking about it. They're different. They're comprehending it. And then you have the people that, because some really important people are talking about this, people that don't really understand it are trying to talk about it because they want to be like them to get noticed. Well, because all that's doing is pushing that information out there. It's going to make other people think when they see that information. And next thing you know, this whole collective conscious is now thinking in a different way. You know what I mean? Well, in general, the spiritual collective conscious, people are waking up in droves that normally, like, I wouldn't have thought like this 10 years ago. I wouldn't have thought like this, if I hadn't started to go down that path and not fought it.
Right.
You know what I mean? More and more that I see, the more books I find, the more people I come in contact with, like yourself, my wife, my friend PJ, my friend Marjan, my friend Dola. Like, these people are all like on that level. They all understand what we're talking about right now. And I bet you 15 years ago, none of us were kind of in that same spot. We would be like, maybe, I don't know, who knows? Like, it's happening. It's happening now.
I think part of it has to do with, well, the first comment I wanted to make was that when new information comes out, it always feels like when people don't understand, there's fear that there's immediate resistance. Like, no, that's not true. Like, no, that's not true. Like, right. And I think that's the initial response, especially from people who are afraid of what they don't know. Right. Okay? There's always that sort of element out there. And so that's why, especially when it's so contrary to, like when you start to talk about us as the God force, or you start to talk about when you go against traditional views of spirituality or of consciousness or of what this life's all about. So then it gets a little sticky for some people, and I think they immediately come out with fear. And unfortunately, we're always in a transition of a previous generation to a contemporary generation. And the contemporary generation is always on the cutting edge of thought. Always. It's just the way that it works. But unfortunately, historically speaking, it's the previous generation who has most of the control.
Right.
So there's where the rub is. The previous generation or generations have more control politically, more control economically, more control over social systems, and so therefore that's what usually holds things back. What makes today different, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear what you think, is the dissemination of information is so readily available to anybody. You and I can go out there and get information out that like nobody else before. In prior history, you had to get the permission from the previous generation, because you had to go to the media outlets, you had to go to all these things, and today it doesn't work like that. You and I can go on social media and reach a couple of million people like that. Things can go viral, and next thing you know, people know about an idea that they didn't know about yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. This ayahuasca, it was called Kentucky ayahuasca, and what it is, it's a Native American religion, and because it's a Native American, they're allowed to use the ayahuasca as their sacrament.
Right.
But they have to be super careful, because if one person gets hurt from it, it basically takes that whole thing away.
Right.
So what they do is they have these ayahuasca ceremonies that last 2 days, and what they do is they kind of, the first night, like you were saying, Dorian has the 4 days. The first night, they kind of break them in a little bit to see how they react to it and to get them to understand it's okay. And then the second night is really the all-in, ceremony. Well, that was on Netflix, right? And it wasn't really, it was on the Vice channel.
Okay.
On cable. And the Vice channel is a very new channel. Like it's got really cool stuff, like American, no, it wasn't American. I think it was called, there was another one about these heroin addicts. It's an unbelievable channel that shows just real life stuff going on right now. Well, that Kentucky ayahuasca, after an episode or two, went viral because everybody was talking about it on the internet.
Oh, wow.
This is my problem. What is this? Well, I've never heard of that. So what happened was they saw the Kentucky ayahuasca, went and Googled it right away, got all the information and saw everything about it, and then started talking about it. Well, 25 years ago, that wouldn't have happened. Somebody would have done an ayahuasca show. Maybe a handful of people would have watched it. Nobody would have talked about it. Eventually, some people would have watched it. Some people thought it was crazy. But you couldn't go access the information to learn more about it right away. Like the second that the show is done, like let's say it goes off at 9 o'clock, I grab my phone. Let me look at this stuff. Okay, well, yeah, it's interesting. You know what I mean? You can literally continue the education right after the show is over as much as you want based on your phone, because all the information's in your phone. It's definitely helping spread awareness, and that's why people are waking up, because they're able to find. So let's say, like we didn't have Skype and stuff like that. Well, we didn't have messaging. We didn't have text messages. Well, I wouldn't even know that you're over in Chicago thinking the same way. Right. How would I know? You know what I mean? Like we're finding out things about other people, and when you vibrate a certain way, you're attracting those other people.
That's
now
right.
They can get to you easier. They can get to you through DMs, they can get to you through emails, they can get to you through text, whatever the case may be. So it's bringing people together that have, the same type of thinking, but people that have questions too, so that they're able to continue their education and study about this stuff, together, but apart, living in other countries online.
Right. I think that's what I find to be really fascinating. The more that I've gotten into this, the more that I understand this concept you're talking about, the more I realize that this is true. This is the sort of the law of attraction, that like attracts like in this universe, that like ideas, like people, and I can see it so prevalent. It's like now I'm noticing it everywhere. Like, oh right. Yeah, I called that. Like it doesn't surprise me that people, I'll pick up a new client, and all of a sudden we're talking about this conversation that you and I are talking about. They're like, yeah, I've been talking about, I had a recent client who's from Iran who I picked up. He's a great bodybuilder, but he went to this whole classes when he was in college in Iran. He's a younger guy, mid-20s, I think, and he had to escape. from Iran during all the hoopla. They were trying to oppress the students and all this stuff, and he had to escape. So he's in Australia now. But he took all these courses from this yogi over there who taught him all these concepts and all these things about just exactly what you and I are talking about. And he's like, Dad, I have to tell you, the reason why I signed up with you is because something told me that I needed to sign up with you, that you would understand what I needed to know, and that we would vibrate at the same frequency or similar frequencies. And I'm like, he's talking like this, and I'm going, wow, man, what have you done? Like, who have you been talking to? And he's like, well, I took these classes, and he's been through hell and back, and he now is in a great position. So he has this wonderful perspective. He says, every day, Dad, I'm grateful because he showed me a picture when he was escaping. He had to jump on a boat with all these other refugees to sail over. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a movie, right? Like, so I really see how we are drawn to each other, and that, man, it's inevitable, right? There's an inevitabilities of life.
Each one of us, actually, every single human being knows the truth that this stuff is real, right? But they either don't accept it or they're not open to it yet. So what happens, I think, once they come in contact with it, some people that are kind of on the edge, it triggers them to understand finally. You're finally like, oh, well, that makes more sense than this. Okay, well, let me look further into this. That leads them down a rabbit hole to something else. They're like, well, that makes more sense than this too. Wow, that's interesting. These two things panned out a lot better than, no, that's it. Let me find out more. Then next thing you know, you're talking like, you're Bruce Lee. You know what I mean? Like, be water, my friend. You're like, what? I look at everything Bruce Lee said that I think is completely nuts, and I understand every single word now. And I'm like, I feel like I speak Lee. Like Bruce Lee, I speak Lee now. It's crazy. Like, like you were talking about, like, we are the God force ourselves. Well, Kanye West says, I am a God, right? And people lost their mind. I'm like, because you're not getting it. Like, he's not saying, I'm a God.
I'm not the God you think I am.
Right? He's saying, like, because he actually talks a lot about God in general. And I'm like, he actually doesn't talk about the spirituality, he puts it more on God, because he understands people understand God more than the spiritual force, the light, whatever you want to call it. So I'm like, this is insane, the stuff that's going on right now under everybody's noses that they don't see because they're not open to it. Right. Like, they're literally blocked off or closed off. Like, they say that by the time, I think it's like 2 years old or something, we can have this thing in our brain locked that won't allow us to see other energies and spirits. Whereas kids before that age see these things. So we were in Minnesota. My ex-girlfriend, she has this little nephew, Jeffrey. He was maybe like 4 at the time. I don't think he was in school. He was like 4 or 5. Now, he never met his grandmother because she passed away before he was born. So he didn't really know what she looked like or anything like that, especially like, before she had passed away or anything like that. Like when she was ill or anything, she looked different than she normally did. Well, he's standing in the living room one day. We're all there for Christmas. And in Minnesota, it's just like this wide open area, right? And he goes, look, Mom. He's like, Grandma. And he points out the window, and there's nothing there, Tad. We're like, there's nothing there, right? So we're like, what the hell is he looking? He goes, right there. You don't see her? He's like, it's Grandma. And they're like, how do you know what Grandma looks like? He's like, she looks like, and he's describing her. She's got long red hair, and she wears these glasses. She's wearing this dress. And they're like, what the hell? They're like, how could he even, like, whatever. They kind of wrote it off. Well, Tad, I kid you not, this bird flies up, goes up and stops in front of the window. The wings are not moving, just sitting there in the air, just sitting there at the window. Did this and flew away. And I was like, I wasn't into this stuff yet, so I was freaked out. And I looked back, and I'm like, he could see her. He literally could see her standing in the yard, and she was interacting with him because he knew she could see him. So now we have this little kid, which happens all the time. Like, kids see things that we can't comprehend because their brains are not locked off. We haven't taught them that it's not real yet. And what's interesting is I grew up, and I talked to my mom about this stuff. She goes, oh, yeah, we saw spirits and this and that. My mom's super believing and super spiritual. I'm like, why did you tell me ghosts aren't real then? She's like, well, we don't want to scare you. That's what all the kids are taught. We can't teach you this. And you go to school and say that's not. Like, I'm like, so basically we were programmed as kids to kind of go along with the flow of things and just kind of assembly line. Like, that's, like, it was almost like free thought and free experiences were shunned upon when my parents had us as kids. Therefore, they taught us what the right things to say out there were when they believed something else or they knew something else to be true, which is, like, it blows my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, you guys knew about, like, not paranormal, but you knew that, these things are real. Like, my mom would say stuff like, she goes to a psychic, which is what Portuguese people, they really believe in psychics and fortune teller. They call them fortune teller. And, she believes in all this stuff. I'm like, but you taught us that it wasn't real. She's like, well, how do you teach a kid that, like, you know, like the ghost that you're seeing is real? She goes, that's just not something we did back in the day. So now I'm kind of looking at it as like, okay, kids, like, experiences that they had. You know, I remember my ex-girlfriend Dion saying that her uncle passed away, and she came downstairs and she smelled cigar smoke. And she was like, well, that's weird. Like, you know, it's like 2:30 in the morning. I'm going to get some water, like cigar smoke. My uncle smokes cigars. She looks, he's sitting in the chair in the living room. Just as clear as we are, like solid, like not a weird thing. Sitting there, and she smells a cigar. She freaked out, woke her dad up, runs in the living room. There's nothing there, but her father smelled the cigar smoke too.
Wow. So
it's like a smell, which is only one of the senses that we have, is related to her uncle. And that was a way to communicate, to let him know, or to let her know that it was him. It was really him. So I'm like, you know, this is when she was little. Like, she was little. Now she's older. Her, you know, she understands that she goes, I was weird. I must have been like half asleep. Like, you could see her explaining that why it was.
Yeah,
you know?
She's explaining it away.
What? You know what I mean? So it's hard because you're dealing with people that truly do believe or understand, and the ones that don't, you find yourself not even able to have conversations with them anymore. Because it's like everything that they're saying, you're like, but no, you know, like, but things that are just part of their life that they may deem important. You're like, why are you putting so much emphasis on that? Who cares?
You know
what I mean?
Do you listen to? Have you heard like Abraham Hicks? You know who she is, or?
Yeah, I don't know too much about her.
Well, she's a channeler. She channels what she would call. She's actually the one who originally conceptualized the law of attraction. They started, and when they wrote the book, The Secret, it was her. Those were her ideas. And she was involved in the movie, but she backed away from the movie because she said that she said, go continue to make it based on my concepts, but I can't be a part of it because you only want to focus on the concept of the law of attraction. That's not my message. Her message was much bigger than that, which was that we create our own realities, and that we're here for the purpose of joy, and that's what this experience is supposed to be about, and so forth. And she has these. She goes on tours around. She's been doing it for years. Wonderful. I listen to her these days. I haven't listened to her quite as much, but usually because there's a bunch of free stuff on YouTube, literally thousands of videos from her conferences and from her workshops where she will answer people's questions. They'll give an experience like, hey, what does this mean? Or, hey, I have this issue. Like, how would you help me with this? And she'll basically explain it energetically and help people talk about how to think about a different way maybe to think about it. But she does it through an entity that she calls Abraham. That she just said, I just picked this name because it would resonate with people. It's not a person. It's the energy of the universe that's communicating with me. I leave myself open to it. So it's not my ideas, she says. It's the universe's ideas. And it's really wickedly awesome. But she, over and over the years that I've listened to her, she talks about birds. So when you said this thing about the birds, she said, somebody asked her about birds, and she said, did you know that when the birds are, for lack of a better way to describe it, and I can't remember exactly the way she described it because she tries to use neutered verbiage. So like she doesn't use the word God, and she says not that it's not valid, it's just that there's so much baggage associated with it that it kind of muddles it. So, but the way she would describe it would be something like, and I'm going to use some words that have a lot of loaded stuff, but that it's like spirits. It's like it's like these other people who've come back, and they're like there to help you. They're there to give you signals. They're there to guide you in some small ways, or sometimes they're just there to give you assurance. But it's almost always, she said, in birds or small animals. But she specifically said birds, and so.
To me, I'm hearing like I don't know if it'd be easy to manipulate, for lack of terms. The bird may be easier to manipulate by.
They can come right in and go
right in and then take off and leave and the bird may not know anything happened whatsoever. Like I know there's different things that are easy to manipulate in this realm in general compared to like whatever other realms are out there. Like for instance, for some reason pennies can be used. So my cousin Christopher passed away 18 years ago on July 1st in a drunk driving accident. He was with his friend. Oh, God. His friend, they were both drinking. His friend's like, I can drive. Wrapped the car on a pole, kill him.
Damn.
So after he died, of course, my whole family was super stressed out. It's 18 years and they're still stressed out about it. So my aunt went to a fortune teller, which is what they do. And the fortune teller said, did you find a $100 bill folded in your wallet on your birthday? She's like, I did. And I was like, where the hell did she? Goes, Christopher put it there. So she was like, really? She goes, and I'm thinking, like, does it float through the air? Like, how does it get there? Does it disappear and reappear? Like, I'm comprehending it with the physical rather than behind it, right? So she said, "Do you see pennies?" Now my mom is relaying this story to me way after this happened, the fortune teller thing, right? And she goes, "I have been finding pennies." She goes, "Christopher's leaving pennies. They're easy to manipulate. He's leaving pennies to let you know he's okay." So I'm like,
wow.
Back in probably 2009, I think I was getting this story from. We were back in Rhode Island. So I go with my girlfriend, Carey. I open the door to the car. There's a friggin' penny on the seat. And I'm looking, I looked at her. I said, you put this there. And she's like, she's like pale. She goes, "No, because we don't carry change. We don't carry cash. Everything is on
Who
cards."
does?
So I'm like, that's weird. But I kept finding these damn pennies all over the place from that point on. So, I mean, then I was just like, okay, this is weird. So my mom had to have surgery. And I think it was breast cancer surgery, whatever it was. She was really freaked out about having it done. And she looks in the toilet in her house. In the bottom of the toilet, there's a friggin' penny in the toilet. And she goes, "Well, that's just stupid." So she flushes the toilet and the penny wouldn't go. It literally was at the bottom of the toilet. So she was like, "Okay, Christopher, I hear you. Everything's going to be okay." She goes and has the surgery, comes home, the penny's still in the toilet, flushed the toilet, went right away. After she had the surgery, it went away, almost like, "You're okay. I was here to comfort you," and it's gone. So, I mean, things have happened where a lot of people would always write things off as coincidences. I don't believe that's true anymore. I don't believe there are coincidences. I believe we're not actually looking to what is actually going on around us and what's being manipulated by other, I don't want to call them entities and energies, but they could be loved ones. They could be someone that, just is trying to get our attention for whatever reason. But it's definitely taken a different kind of perspective for me after I knew that physical things can be manipulated like that. And some things are easier than others to be manipulated. Maybe what the penny's actually made of, the copper, it conducts electricity well. Maybe that's why, because it's electrical impulse that they're trying to move around.
Or maybe it's just easy. Maybe it's something easy because there's so many of them out there.
Move this around. There's one on the table already.
If I was a spiritual entity and I wanted to use something to to like give a signal, it might be a penny. That's easy, right?
I think I put like a $10,000 bill because nobody's ever seen it, and they'd be like, "What the hell?" Like they can't argue that.
Give them like a winning lottery ticket, just floats.
Everybody I know gets a $10,000 bill in one night. They can't argue that, right?
Well, aside from the birds, Abraham Hicks also talks about numbers. That oftentimes she said that, people will see consecutive numbers. That there's some, and I'm not talking about numerology. I'm just talking about that they're like signs. And I've always felt that it's kind of funny that numbers. She would say this. I'm listening one day talking about numbers, and when I was 19, I was in college, and I changed my major from business to philosophy. At the time, that school, it was called religious studies, and then it went to philosophy. But I was in a course, an exegesis course of the New Testament, and it was one of my favorite courses. One of my favorite professors, who was a world-renowned scholar in Jesus scholarship. I wanted to be just like this dude. Okay, he was my model for what I wanted to be like. I wanted to go and I did independent studies with him and stuff. He died a couple years later. He wrote many books, very famous for his works, and he worked on several movies, some Jesus movies, where he was a consultant. But we were talking about the Book of Revelation on this particular day, and I was like, and for some reason I got it in my head. I'm like, everyone that I know has a fucking favorite, has a lucky number. I don't got shit. And I'm like, don't ask me why that shit was important to me, right? And I'm like, I need to have a lucky number. So I'm like, I'm just like sitting in class going, okay, I need to have a lucky number. And then all of a sudden, he talks about, the Book of Revelation, the most common, the most mentioned number is the number 12, because it's like, the 12 tribes of Israel, 12 this, 12 this, 12 this. It's because it's the perfect number. And in Judaic circles, it's the perfect number, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, 12, that's my number. I'm like, 12, that's my number. It's perfect. I'm like, 1 plus 2, because I always figured this was my family. To me, it meant family, because at most of my life, I grew up, it was my brother and I, which is the number 2, and my mother, which is the number 1, and together it was 3. And I was like, man, 3 is was this idea that I had for the family unit, right? That was my idea. So 12 seemed like the logical choice. So I'm like, yeah. So it spoke to me. So since 19, I chose 12 as my lucky number. So when I would if I got like a lottery ticket, if it was a 12, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a lucky one, or something like. But consequently, since then and now, like these days, the last couple years, especially this last year, man, I'm seeing. I would take screenshots of my phone, because I'll look at my phone. I'll just get the inspiration of my phone. It'll be 12:12. It'll be 12 minutes, or it'll be noon, or it's midnight, or it's 12 after midnight. I'm like, or it's 1122. I'm like, I get 12s everywhere. I look at a license plate, fucking 12, what the hell's going on? Like, and I've always thought it was the universe speaking to me, but I think it's the same kind of thing as like the bird or whatever. You know, it probably has a lot to do with what you need to hear, you know, or what you need to know.
My dog's name is Brady, right?
Right.
Brady is named after Tom Brady. What number is Tom Brady?
12 or 21.
My birthday is December
12.
December 12th.
Really?
1975. Add 7 to 5 is 12.
we were destined to be friends, my friend. Well, here's another interesting. So my ex-wife Bernadette, her birthday is December 12th.
No kidding.
Yeah, and her favorite singer was a guy who was born on 12/12, Frank Sinatra.
He was born on December 12th?
He was born on December 12th.
No idea. That's crazy.
Well, wow, that makes it. Now I have an even more special connection with you, my friend.
As soon as you said 12, I was like, no shit.
Hey, man, I'm telling you, like, it's just
also is number 3 represents our whole universe is made up of 3s. I don't understand exactly how it works, but Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I mean, all of it revolves around 3. Like the ultimate shape, structure-wise, to be the strongest structure is a pyramid or a triangle.
Right.
Three sides. So, you know, it's the perfect shape, stuff like that. Like 3, and I don't really understand. I think my wife understands it more than I do. But Freemasonry, again, 3 is a very important number in Freemasonry because geometry itself is the opening or the key to unlocking all the different things in the universe. Because sacred geometry, I'm sure you've heard of, like all of it revolves around shape and geometric structures that are.
Is that why they have the what is it like there's a tool, a measurement tool that's on like the free? Isn't it like on the Freemason?
Square and compass. So like it looks like a diamond almost.
Right.
But it's a square, which is like a 190-degree angle on the bottom, and a compass that's opened up on the top.
Right.
So it kind of looks like this.
Right. Yeah.
It's a square and compass. Those are the working tools of a master mason, which is our the symbol of masonry.
Can you describe what being a Freemason means to you, or what it is? Because I've always been personally very intimately interested in Freemasonry. Don't ask me why. I found it to be really fascinating, and I don't know. I've never known anyone that was a Freemason. So you're the first person that I know.
It's basically most people are attracted to it because of the mysticism behind it, because of the secrecy.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like it's not a secret society, but it's a society of secrets. And those secrets are, you know, you go through your 3 degrees. So Freemasonry, to me, the reason why I joined Freemasonry was I had an experience with a Mason that I wasn't even a Mason at the time. I just knew what the symbol meant. I knew what it reflected. And my wife and I were in Chichen Itza down in Mexico, and it was our tour guide. And when he showed me, he saw my tattoos, he goes, "Oh, I'm getting a tattoo too." He goes, "I'll show you." And he goes like this. He looks around, and he shows me his phone, and it had the square and compass. I said, "Oh, you're a Mason." He just kind of looked at me. Then this is like I wasn't really involved with Freemasonry. I knew kind of, you know, what it was, but didn't really. Like basically everything everybody else knows. But I had a friend who was a Mason who was like, you know, kind of could answer my questions, but they could only answer so many questions. You know, like so on this bus trip, we get off at Chichen Itza, and I said, "How long have you been a Mason?" He said, "About 3 years." He goes, "There's 12 other brothers on the bus." I'm like, "There's 12 Masons on the bus?" He said, "Yeah," and they were from all different countries all over the world going to Chichen Itza. So when we rolled up there, you can't film in there. Like video, you can't film. He's like, "Oh, you're all set, Jerry. You can film." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You're all set. I took care of it," because I just knew what the symbol was, and you know, it wasn't a Mason. So now we're going through the tour, and he would use Aaron and I. He's like, "Okay, this is the so and so pyramid, or Kukumo, the king and queen right here. Jerry and Aaron are the king and queen." Like he would use us as example. Like he was being so nice to us, and then he let the tour go up a little bit, and he took this mirror and he's showing us everywhere on these pyramids, Masonic symbols carved in these pyramids, thousands of years old. Now I was like, wait a minute, this is dating back more than what I thought it was. So after we got off the bus, we were back at the hotel. He said, "Listen, man," he said, "if you decided to go through with the Freemasonry thing," he's like, "it's the best thing I ever did in my life." He's like, "Just keep up with your studies and stuff, and you're going to learn a lot, and it's going to make you a better person." When I got back, the first thing I did was contact my friend. I said, "How do I get involved in this?" Because now I understood. So one of the things was the obligation you take as a Mason is to always be there for your other brothers, but you can never, ever turn your back on them or screw them over or ever, you know, break their trust. Well, being in the bodybuilding industry, that's what happens all the time. So I was like, I want people around me that I can trust. I never have to worry about them ever hurting me. But at the same time, if something happens to me, they took an obligation to help Aaron, to help my dog, to help my mom. So after you're gone, they take care of the people that you love, whether it be money wise or, like Aaron needs to have a door replaced or something. They would come and do that because they take care of your family after you're gone. And I found out they had the Mahova, the Masonic home of Virginia. It's an elderly home. As we get older, if we can't be on our own, we can live at that home as a Mason.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm learning all this other stuff about it. I was like, well, that's interesting. Now there's the charity aspect of it. All the Masons do a lot of charity. So a portion of our dues goes to the Shriners. Shriners are Masons. Oh. We have a hospital in Philadelphia, I believe it is. All the kids that have cancer, leukemia, all that, them and their families pay nothing. They go in there, stay there until the treatments are done. It takes 5 years. They live there completely for free because we pay for it through our dues every month or every year at our lodges. So once I figured this stuff out, I was like, well, this is pretty much where I want to be at. So I decided to go in the lodge, take part in fellowship, which is basically just meeting all the guys and getting to know them and stuff. And then I was initiated. Then I really started to find out the geometry, and this is what it was. I believe that everybody's on a path, and nothing happens by chance. When I started learning the secrets of the universe that I wanted to know already, how it compares to geometry and this and that, the Masons already knew it. So it was like another aspect of what I wanted to learn cosmically through them. And I was like, oh, now it's all fitting together. So now the more that I went through the degrees, you go through 3 degrees. You go through Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, and then your Master Mason degree. Entered Apprentice is your birth and your teenage years. Your Fellowcraft is your adult years. And then your final Master Mason, you confront your own death. So you go through all those aspects of life within these.
Now this is metaphorical, right?
It's metaphorical, yeah. But they're trying to explain to you when you're younger, you're kind of hot-headed, and you're Then when you go through your adulthood, you're really getting your stuff together, and you're trying to become a better person. And then when you finally, die, this is what happens. And they have, God, the great architect of the universe, the G. They understand that there's cosmically we're linked afterwards. And that was something that I was like, okay, now I'm starting to really piece this all together. I'm like, it's not just about, like the Illuminati, which everybody thinks it's about. Like everybody automatically goes Illuminati. So now I'm sitting there going, okay, this is about spirituality, and their whole thing is making good men better. Like they want you to be a better person based on these things that you're learning through Masonry. So now when I took my 3rd degree, which was about 2 months ago, you go through this ceremony. The very next day, I went through with another brother. We were both raised, they call it raised at the same time. The next week I saw him. I said, hey, do you feel different? He goes, I do. I said, why? We're trying to figure it out. So once you realize that you're in possession of knowledge that other people don't have, and they can't get it unless they go through those degrees, you now feel like a responsibility to the fraternity, the Masonry, to carry yourself a certain way, not embarrass that because they gave you the knowledge that you were looking for. So now you have like all these other aspects of it that are, and again, the stuff that you're learning has never been written down. Year after year after generation after centuries passed down by speaking. So you have secrets that have been spoken down, and it dates back to ancient Egypt that unless you're a Mason, you don't know. No other Mason knows. And I've looked online to see all the stuff that people think they know after I went through all the degrees, and it's not accurate. So I'm like, the stuff they think they know, I'm like, it's not from Masons coming out and going against their obligation. It's people making stuff up because they just don't understand it. So that was the whole thing. It was another thing was we meet on the level, which means that there are people that are in my lodge that you would absolutely shit if you knew who these people were. Like it's you're like, I can't believe I'm sitting next to this person, but it doesn't matter because you're all equal. They call it meeting on the level. It doesn't matter what your life is outside there. When you walk through the door, there's no politics, there's no religion.
I love that.
So that was like, when I started really, delving into it, I was like, this is not what evil, like dark arts thing that people think it is. And now you're also around a lot older guys too that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s. Well, I didn't realize the wisdom that these guys have, you can't get unless you've lived that life.
Right.
To hack the system because they're giving you the wisdom that they already have. Wow. If you understand that is wisdom. So like, so you learn a catechism. So there's a question and answer thing that when you become a Mason, you learn this question and answer thing that gets you to the next level. In that question and answer, there's all these different lessons, but you have to memorize it. It's a 30 question answer back and forth. It's not written down. So you have to have a coach, a catechism coach that sits down and teaches you this stuff. Well, he happens to be a professor at Johns Hopkins University. So he's super into the geometry and like all the history of the Masons and stuff. So I was going through.
So it's like a mentorship program.
Well, kind of like the only way you can learn that catechism is for one of these people that already know it to give it to you.
Okay, gotcha.
So you have to study it, then you take the obligation for the next step, and you go through the obligations. But my catechism coach happens to be so much further along with the history and the understanding of what Mason really is. I'm getting pieces and it's no surprise that he wound up being my mentor because that's what I was after. You know what I mean? I was after that information to have more knowledge to become better myself. So now as I'm learning all this stuff, I'm sitting there going, this is something that, unless you're ready for it, is not going to happen. Like, you can't just walk into this thing. Some people would think it's stupid. Some people will think it's a waste of time. Like, you have to be ready to accept the fact that, you know, you are just like everyone else. Nobody's better than you are. You're not better than anyone else is. Like, all the things that, you know, like are good moral values are represented in Masonry. But nowadays, it's just not like that. People don't really understand that anymore. They're more into themselves. Like, you can't have an ego in the lodge. It's not going to work. Right. Everybody works together. Like, if we have to vote on something, we vote together. You know what I mean? Like, everybody has to have a unanimous vote. It can't be one saying nay because we have to be together on one page on this situation. You know, so it's definitely a lot more than I think people understand. And like, movies have sensationalized it, like you know, National Treasure and stuff like that. Right, but now I can watch movies and now understand, like, they actually have a lot of stuff in movies that are Easter eggs for Masons, like a ring here, a symbol here, whatever the case may be. You have no idea unless you're a Mason, and you're realizing, wait a minute, there's so many of these symbols or these other Masons all over the world that, like, you would be surprised. Like, the person sitting next to you is probably a Mason.
I've heard that. That's pretty cool. I think it's everything you described. I didn't know most of the stuff you just described. So, but yeah, there's a show on Netflix that talks about the Freemasons, but they don't.
So it's a documentary. It's like 5 episodes long. So that one is very, very traditional. It's over in England, whereas the Grand Lodge is.
Is it accurate?
So, well, for that it is, but no, the American Lodge is a little bit different. Like, we're not as strict, so they wear like white gloves and like tuxedos. So when we go to a stated meeting, we just wear a suit and tie. You know what I mean? And we have our aprons that are, you know, part of the badge of Freemasons, but we don't have to wear the white gloves. But it's exactly the same. So if you watch the documentary, you'll see the individual getting ready to be initiated, and his father is a Mason, and he's learning the catechisms. And then it shows him go in behind the closed doors to do the catechism so he can get to the next level. And his father's on the committee too, but then the door shuts and you don't see actually what happens. So it's accurate. Like, it is exactly what takes place. But, you know, one thing I've noticed is I think people look at the English or that, you know, that area, like the British, the Masons over there, they look at it as something like goofy or weird. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's like because they don't understand like the suits, the white gloves, they don't understand the symbols. They think it's weird. So like when we do it here, they're like, that's just an offshoot of those weird people over there. Like, or something. You're like, trust me, like, I've never seen a cult advertise or march in a parade. We do, you know, like, they don't have hospitals saving children, you know, like stuff like that. But it's, you know, there's a lot of good information in the book called Freemasons for Dummies, which was the first book they got, which I was like, okay, any of the Dummies books or Cliff's Notes books, I'm good. You know, I mean, that takes care of, you know, 101 Secrets of Freemasonry is another good one where they give you as much as they can without giving away any of the secrets. What's
the purpose behind protecting the secrets?
The knowledge you have. So like, let's say you give the average person this knowledge and they're not ready for it, they don't know what to do with it. Not only is it wasted, but it can be used the wrong way, which is not what it's for. So you have to be trained to understand what you're learning.
Sounds kind of like religion.
It's the most unreligious thing specifically.
I don't mean Freemasonry. I mean what you just the scenario you just described about getting information and misusing it sounds a lot to me like organized religion in many respects.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a parallel to that. It's not even. I think honestly, it is to protect Freemasonry more than the information. So Freemasonry has remained unchanged, whereas religion has changed here and there throughout the years, even sprung up new religions. Freemasonry hasn't changed the whole time. So the things that we're told and spoken down to us are exactly what was spoken down 1,000 years ago. The same words, like the words used don't even make sense to us. Like, that's the thing. It's like you're repeating this. You're like, I would never talk like this. Like, what the heck? Because it's a different language that you're speaking, because that's how they spoke back then. So it's like you're having to not just learn the memorization, but the meaning of that, when you learn the meaning of what you're saying, you delve into a deeper understanding of what you're saying, because you're having to learn it and fully understand what you're saying, because it makes no sense. You know what I mean? So it's hard to explain, because it is as great as it's been to me so far. There's so many people out there that want to like condemn it or damn it as something bad.
It doesn't sound it sounds like it's all good stuff.
Well, what happens is, like, so there's what we have is in Fairfax, Virginia, in our district, there are approved lodges, which means the Grand Lodge of England approves us. And we have a Grand Lodge of Virginia, which basically oversees everything to make sure that things are being done exactly the way they're supposed to be done and not changing them, because if they change them slightly, that changes the course of history forever, because it has to be spoken down the way it was originally. So it's kind of like an organized thing like that. So there's something called a clandestine lodge, which I didn't know about. So a clandestine lodge is like so let's say I want to be a Mason. I go to the lodge, They say, okay, here's the deal. You take part in fellowship, the brothers get to know you, and you can petition. You sign a petition, then you have to have 2 acting master masons sign it that they're vouching for you. After they sign that, they then read it in lodge, they hold it over for a month due to Masonic law, and then they vote to let the person in. Before the vote, they have a home visit. The masons come to the person's home, talk to the wife and stuff to make sure that she understands it's not this evil, weird thing, and know that she's welcome at the lodge, she's welcome at the functions. Everything is cool. She just can't take part in the ritual that we do as far as the secrecy, as far as learning, the secrets of Freemasonry. So they want to make sure that it's okay with her, or they don't even let you in. If she's like, nah, I don't really like this, they go, I'm sorry, like, you're not a good fit for it. We don't want to wreck your home life.
Right. That makes sense.
So some people don't get in. If you have a felony charge or conviction, you can't get in. So they're very specific about certain things to protect the information. But if you don't get in, then what? People get very mad. They seek out other lodges, and some of them just started their own. So now they may go to another lodge and petition, the same thing happens. So they started these clandestine lodges, which are not approved, and we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but they use the same exact symbols. And those symbols don't have the same meanings we have because they don't know what the meanings are. So they create their own meanings. And now you have these things that have popped up where have been very cult-like or very controlling or very, like to the point where
they're not, but it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. But what happens is somebody escapes that and they go online and say, I escaped Freemasonry. This is what happened. Now everybody's like, well, they're all like that. And I'm like, well, I was told when I got there, like, look, these clandestine lodges, you cannot associate with somebody from them. You cannot go to the lodges and take part. Like, these are not associated with us specifically because it's built to basically tear down what we have. It doesn't go by our values. They have no idea what we're doing in here. They're doing their own thing. So I think a lot of people kind of got the idea from people coming out being, harassed or beaten or hazed or like, satanic rituals and all this weird stuff coming from these other lodges that are basically cults under the guise of masonry because they get left alone because the authorities think they're Masons.
Wow.
Police love Masons. Fire people love Masons. In general, people that, that know what Masonry is, they love it. So they kind of leave them alone and don't pay attention where all this weird shit is going on.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Everybody thinks you're one of those, which is not how it works.
It sounds, it was once described to me that it was kind of a religious order, but it doesn't sound really.
No. It used to be just God. You had to believe in God. Now you have to believe in a deity. It can be God. It can be Allah. So the guy that was raised with me, when we took our obligation, I had a Holy Bible. He had a Quran. Okay. So it's now open to everybody. Black people used to not be able to get in. So there's a guy named Prince Hall was his name. He went to the Grand Lodge of England, and a black individual, and said, I want to start my own lodge. And they approved it. So they used to be Prince Hall Masons, which means that it was all black fraternity. Well, now black people can be in my lodge. I can be in theirs. Like it's changed throughout time to include more people because they don't want it to be a religious thing. They don't want it to be a skin color. And interesting enough, like we were talking. I said, "You guys ever think you'd have a tattooed individual like me as one of you guys?" And he laughed. He said, "We had a guy that was worse." I said, "Really?" He goes, "We had this biker." He goes, and he was voted on, and one of the top guys that this guy is like. I can't even say enough about this guy. But I don't really want to say who he is. So I'm not sure, what he wants out there. But he stood up and said, remember, we're not voting on this individual's appearance. We're voting on who he is. And I think he's like this. And that's what we're voting on. And when I heard that, I was like, that's another thing that they didn't care what was on his outside. They voted on the inside. And
I like
got
that.
in.
I like that.
So I was like, I'm looking at this thing going, it really is. And Masons take this very seriously. They take their obligations very seriously. They take the lodge very seriously. They take their relationship with their brothers very seriously. I have a friend of mine who's up in New England who's a Mason, and my mom's up there. So she wears a blue slipper pin. The blue slipper pin represents a widow or the mom or a wife of a Mason. So when she goes out anywhere and something happens, if a Mason sees that pin, they're going to approach her right away and say, is your husband a Mason? And when she'll say, no, my son is, and she'll give a certain password. It's not a password, but it's a saying that Masons have that's not a secret. But when she says that, they're going to go, okay, he really is a Mason.
Okay, right.
And help her with whatever she needs. If she has an illness, I call my buddy up there who's already a Mason, say, my mom's sick, I need you to get there, I'll be there tomorrow. He'll be up there waiting for me when I get there with him.
Oh, wow. So it really is like a brotherhood.
It is, yeah. Like we had, one guy, his mom lived, like she's elderly, she lived out in kind of the woods out here in Virginia, and he hadn't heard from her. So he's like, hey man, I'm on a trip right now for work. Can you go check on my mom? So one of our brothers drove up there, there was a tree that fell, knocked down the power line, so she didn't have not only power, but the phone wasn't working. So he jumped the thing, went inside, talked to her, said, I'm going to take care of everything. He went back to his house, got a chainsaw, cut the tree up, and stayed with her until the other guy got back home because she was scared. He didn't know if she was going to be okay. And that was just his obligation he took. Like we have brothers that,
That's just being a good person, though, too.
But the thing is, it's like you take that obligation for the other people, but you don't realize that you're doing it for him, but it rolls over the rest of your life. You do it for a person who's not a Mason because you get used to doing it. You know what I mean? So that's how it kind of
changes you.
Right.
I think that's wonderful, man. That's the kind of attitude that I think we all should have, whether we use the excuse to be a Mason to do that or not. It doesn't matter. It just matters that we adopt a kind of philosophy that is a loving philosophy, that is an understanding philosophy. That, you know, I think it's wonderful, man. It's like really heartwarming to me. I think it's just something. It really is, man, because I've looked my whole life for stuff like this. I tried to incorporate this kind of way of being in my own world, and I've often felt a little out of place because it is not. Oftentimes, people don't understand, or they think there's ulterior motives or whatnot, right. You know, and I don't have ulterior motives. I am as transparent as it gets, especially when it comes to how I feel and who I am. I don't need to have any pretenses, but I think I love it. I think it's awesome. Now, before I don't want to bite into too much more of your time, but I want to talk about one other topic, because it just happened, and I just get curious because I love your take on stuff because it's similar to mine, and you also have a nice way to cut through all the bullshit. Shawn Rhoden and because I don't normally talk about controversial shit. But something got in my craw about this. It's not the incident that him and this other person. It's the way that the Weider AMI handled it, and right. just took him out of the running to be just excluded him now and disallowed him to compete in the Olympia. So and I've expressed this publicly already that I think we are innocent until proven guilty. That's the country that we live in, and I think we should abide by that regardless of what was happening. He's only been charged and accused. He's not been convicted. So, and I think he should be treated this way. And so I thought it was and I thought the organization, the NPC, IFBB Pro League, did it appropriately. They came out with a statement yesterday or Friday that said that he still has full privileges as an IFBB Pro, that they're not, there's no reprimand because, nothing's been proven and all. And so their stance, he still holds the same privileges that he always had so to date. But they're watching the situation because and reasonably so, they should. What's your take on all this junk?
Yeah, I just want to check on my dog 1 second. Let me I want to make sure he's all right.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll get a drink. I'm going to keep the camera rolling.
He's sleeping. That's why he's quiet.
Is he? What kind of dog is he?
A French Bulldog.
Oh, awesome. That's cool.
Running around. He's super cool. So, of course, I have a different view than everyone else on this situation. Now, I have a video I just made. It's going to be going up today exactly with this topic. Okay. But, I mean, it's going to be different people that probably hear your thing, so it doesn't really matter. So
people won't hear this until probably 2 or 3 days from now.
Oh, okay.
Because I'll have to, yeah. So
I think that the Olympia actually handled this exactly by protocol the way it's supposed to be handled, by not allowing him to compete this year. And there's a reason why.
But they said in future too. He's
right. So they said future, but I think what happened was they kind of the way they worded it. They meant in the future if he's found guilty.
Okay.
If he's not found guilty, they're going to reinstate him because they can't not reinstate him if he didn't do anything.
Right.
He could sue the shit out of them. So they're going to have to reinstate him. But the main thing is he is an accused rapist right now. He just happens to be the best in the world at bodybuilding. Now, what happens, and by the way, it was a figure competitor that he's accused of sexually assaulting.
I knew it was something like that. They say bodybuilder, but that's just a general term.
I was like, it's probably not a bodybuilder. So what do you think would happen if Shawn Rhoden, while this is going on, the fact that he could even get to the Olympia and block out everything and be able to train would be phenomenal. I don't even think he would get to the Olympia personally, but he gets there and you have all these bikini figure who he supposedly assaulted and physique women backstage all scantily clad with an accused rapist walking around, talking to him, touching him on the shoulder. Like, I think that honestly, half of these girls would freak out based on the fact that he's just an accused rapist. Because if it wound up being real, those girls technically now would be like, you guys put me in danger because he actually was found guilty. This thing should have never, it's a huge lawsuit. That's basically what it is. It's not about right, wrong, if he did it or not. It's about business. The Olympia is business. Now, if the Olympia did not do this and it came out that he did it and he was around those girls and they felt uncomfortable, the lawsuits would make it so the Olympia would never happen again. It would be done. 5 girls getting together suing the Olympia because of that. You have a judge that's sympathetic towards women that were maybe had something happen to them in the past or something that it triggered. Like, we don't even know what's going on, but any business, their HR would tell them immediately to give them leave. Not fire them, but give them a time of leave until this thing plays out, which is what they're doing. They can't allow him to be with all these scantily clad bikini and figure women all backstage when he's technically considered a accused rapist. Now, if he's not found guilty, then he can go back there. And, if women are uncomfortable then that's on them because he's already been found innocent. But right now where they don't know, like they have the availability to say, oh, yeah, come on down and compete. Well, if all those other girls pull out of the show and then sue the place because they're like, it's over. Like the entire bodybuilding industry revolves around the Olympia being the best show in the world. Could you imagine no Olympia because, a couple women got upset that this possibly could have happened maybe somewhere at some time. And we know that, like, it doesn't even have to be real. All they have to do is get a lawyer and go after it. And it ties the Olympia, which was not David Pecker anymore. It's
I think
David Pecker.
Yeah, David Pecker.
Tie them up in court, spending all kinds of money and stuff, when in the end, the judge is going to say, you put a accused rapist around these women who are basically almost naked backstage. Like, what are you thinking? And right there, that's done. There's no more Olympia because they're going to have to pay every dime to these girls that are going to sue them. Now, unfortunately for Shawn, even if he's found innocent, I don't feel like this thing's going to go away. I feel like there's going to be people that still look at him and go, he just got away with it, even though he was found innocent. Like, let's say all the evidence shows that he's completely innocent. There's always going to be those people that are not going to believe it.
Yeah.
And they're going to push that. Behind the scenes, they're going to push that. So now Shawn's never going to escape this the rest of his life, whether it comes out that, he did it or he didn't. So he's in the worst spot right now. Like if anything, I feel like Shawn himself should have pulled him out of the show, pulled himself out of the show and said, look, I'm not doing this because I got this going on, but we'll see how it plays out. But, he hasn't made a statement, hasn't done anything yet. I don't know what the deal is, but, AMI right away had to say, look, we got the Olympia coming up. We're having a hard enough time filling seats as it is. The Olympia's been going down for a few years. We had a Lebroni come back to try to bump it up. They're trying everything they can to make it more interesting and hype up the Olympia now. Could you imagine if a bunch of women pulled out of the show, or then sued, or people that deemed, and not even the competitors, what about the other women and even men that are, in the crowds that say, how could you let a rape or an accused rapist in the Olympia where all these are like, all they have to do is have that frame of mind. They don't go, they don't support the Olympia. Like, if it was anything else, if it was a drug charge, no, you know what, let him on stage. If he, ran a red light and crashed into a car, let him on stage. Rape is something that they can't mess with.
It's a violent crime. It's a violent crime. It's a violent crime against somebody.
And now you have other women that are popping up that are saying the same thing. Like there's a woman that popped up, said that she's the one that broke his jaw. He tried to rape her. She broke his jaw, and he paid her off. This happened like years ago. She said that, and nobody believed her. Now everybody's revisiting it because this came out. She already said that. They're like, wait a second now. And now I look back. I'm like, Shawn never said what happened to his jaw. He talks about a broken jaw. But I've never heard him once say this is why my jaw was broken. They used the jaw as, well, I had a broken jaw and I still got to the Olympia and got third. Look how awesome I am. Wait a minute. None of us ever asked why your fucking jaw was broken.
Right.
Like nobody has an answer to it. And he still hasn't said it. Even after the girl said it. And even after the girl said it back then, why didn't he come out and say, that's not what happened. My jaw was broken because I fell and I hit it on the thing. He never said anything. He never went against what she said. So there's more like going on that's bubbling up that I think people are like, now it's like they're judging him before, like this whole thing. The first girl could have lied, absolutely. This girl may be lying, but now Shawn's in the predicament where people just they're looking to judge him basically just on principle alone,
right?
Because it's a sex crime.
Yeah, I guess I had a problem just with judging him. Period. That I felt like that kind of decision to disallow him from competing kind of insinuated that he's guilty. But I have to make this clear. I support the Olympia's right as a business, because I have a business too, to refuse business to anybody. If they just say, hey, look, man, we think it's in bad form to have this person compete. I don't care if you're the reigning Mr. Olympia or not. I totally support that. I just personally think that that we shouldn't convict anybody before we do it.
I agree.
Now, these things you raise absolutely are valid. I think that we're always walking amongst people that we don't know what they're, so like, like being backstage with, who knows, right? Like, gosh, I'm sure you could say the same about like back in the day when Craig Titus competed, somebody could say, wow, you put me in the hands of a fucking murderer.
Could have been the same thing, but I mean, the way it played out, it played out to where he went to prison and, it was very clear that he did it, like there was no denying that he had, done it. But, the bottom line is I don't think that the Olympia was damning him or condemning him. Now, if they said we're going to take his picture off the wall, we're going to take him out of the record books, before he was convicted, I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Like, don't erase the guy's legacy.
Just because
based on the fact that, like, someone said something.
I guess it kind of scares me that that you can get all this that this can happen to somebody off of an accusation without some kind of judgment, official legal judgment. Like that's what scares me.
Right now, I mean, as of right now, it's technically his job. He's just being given leave from his job, which would happen anywhere, not just in
That's true. I mean, when you look at it like that, yeah. But I guess my concern was that it was that because of that leave, because of most people are not as thought provoking or as, and I hate to say it like this, but most people just don't think about things the way you and I are thinking about this. Because like I said, the Olympia has full right to do whatever they want, and I support that right to be able to take him out. I just think that it runs a dangerous course because for most people who are looking on, they're going to think, oh well, he's guilty.
Right. Well, that's the thing is people are going to jump to conclusions. But if Shawn tried to sue, like the Olympia, say, why won't you let me compete? I wasn't even convicted. When they go to court, all the things I just brought up are going to give a jury or a judge, anybody, more than reasonable doubt to say you guys did the right thing. Like this is protocol in most businesses and stuff like that. But the problem is, I think it's such a shocking thing that came out. I don't think anybody's looking at this as what it really is. Like break it down, take it for a second, look at it as a lawyer and not a bodybuilding fan. Look at it as a lawyer and not a friend of Shawn Rhoden's. Look at it as a lawyer and not a Mr. Olympia competitor. As a lawyer, you say, here's the deal. We have to cover ourselves here, XYZ. I'm sure that Shawn hasn't put out a statement yet because his lawyer told him not to do that. I'm sure if Shawn had put out a statement, things actually might be different, but he's not based on what the advice he's getting from. So now we're like, none of us really know what the fuck is going on. But I do know that if it does come out that he gets convicted and he was at that Olympia around those women, the IFBB is in for a world of hurt. And the IFBB is not trying to deal with that. It's the Olympia that's put it on, but the IFBB, they're going to be like, well, you work with the IFBB and you guys are all connected. Like the whole thing can turn to a total mess just based on the fact of what it could be. Right. You know what I mean? So their whole thing is like, let's take a leave, sit back. We're not taking you out of the record books. We're not going to take the thing off the wall yet, but we can't let you based on this. And I haven't spoken to Shawn, but I'm sure that he understands where the Olympia would come from a business standpoint. But
I understand. Yeah, I totally.
Like from a personal standpoint, he's going to be like, I'm your reigning Mr. Olympia. Why won't you stick up for me? You know what I mean? At the same time, you have to go, well, here's the deal. Like, there's no proof either way yet, which means that we can't just go along business as usual because it's not business as usual anymore. You know what I mean? There's something out there that's kind of, a serious crime that has been accused of, whereas if it was, littering or whatever, I'm sure, nobody's going to.
There's a certain, and I hate to say this because I like Shawn, I think he's a nice guy, but I don't know him I don't know any details about any of these things, but I do, but because I know him and like him, and I think he's a wonderful Mr. Olympia, but I also believe in veracity for everybody, fairness for everybody, and whether he's found guilty or innocent, I believe that we should all be treated the same. So until it all ferrets itself out, but it does beg the question that like if I was his attorney, if I was his lawyer, man, you got to come out with something fast, sooner or later, because if not, it just makes you look more and more guilty.
Unless she's telling him, we have all the evidence to prove that this is bullshit, don't say a word. We're going to go into court. We're going to squash this. If you come out now and say one word, media can spin that in whatever direction they want. Like we've seen that many times. Somebody gives a speech and they all of a sudden say, well, they said this, they said that. And you're like, what are you talking about? You start twisting things around. Maybe they're trying to keep him from having things work against him when he finally gets in court.
Right.
I mean, I don't really know, but I do know that, the silence, most people take it as guilt. Sometimes to me, the silence is like, I really want to make a statement, but my lawyer said...
Right. I get that. Yeah, I totally... And that's probably the case. I imagine his attorney saying, just in lieu of screwing yourself, just don't say anything. Don't. But it does almost like... If you're... And I'm just going to play devil's advocate. If you're the reigning Mr. Olympia and you didn't do this crime and it's just an accusation and it's a false one, I can imagine how would feel. And then AMI, the Olympia people say, we're not going to let you compete because of this accusation, because we need to protect ourselves. Then I'd say, wow, man. To me, I'd be like, I just got royally fucked. Why? Based on an accusation. Why does it so that would make me feel like I would want to stand up and say, hey man, no, I got to take a stand. I got to let my voice be heard because this is my career. This is literally my career. Like all rolled up into one thing. It's literally his career. Like he's going nowhere else in bodybuilding if he gets like it's going to be done. Like he's no more competing for him. No more I mean, I'm sure he'll still always have a place. Whether if he's found innocent or guilty, he'll probably always have a place. Even somebody like Craig Titus, if he ever gets out of prison, will have some kind of voice out there in the world.
You know what's messed up? What's extremely messed up is people would look at Craig Titus as a murderer is not as bad as Shawn Rhoden as a rapist.
It's ironic,
you
isn't
literally
it?
end someone's life, and they'll go, "Hey, well, you know what? We'll give him another shot. He's paid his due to society." If Shawn Rhoden is accused of rape and he gets charged, like there's never going to be another chance. They're not going to say, "Okay, we'll give him a second." That's it. Like your life is over. It's done. Which I mean, rightfully so. If you did that, your life should be a lot difficult more than it was.
Well, we pay each of us pay the consequences of our actions. Sometimes it's fair. Sometimes it feels unfair. Sometimes it feels more fair. I don't know. Like I said, the only issue that I had was that I felt that it was a little preemptive to be able just to disallow, because we still got 8 weeks or whatever until the Olympia. Right. So like you could still leave this off the shelf, unless, like you said, unless they fear that competitors may pull out.
Yeah, they see the competitors pulling out, or their legal team.
Or my guess is they probably fear that the people who are buying tickets or people who are fans who are coming to the Olympia that might bring down the audience or the because hey, like the reigning Mr. Olympia is an accused rapist, like maybe because I can totally, and from a business perspective I think, okay, I get it, I totally get it.
If it was any other charge, I honestly don't think it would be the same. You know what I mean? I think everything would be fine.
You're right. Yeah,
it's such a heinous charge, heinous crime that really does strip the person of their rights, their I mean everything. It just demeans the other person. So if you're like, well, our top guy might have done this, I mean, I don't know if Shawn and Olympia had anything back and forth, but he hasn't made a public statement. Yeah. I mean, at the very least, I think I would have said, as I don't know, maybe as Mr. Olympia, I just say, these allegations are false. We look forward to going to court and having the truth come out. Something that's very basic that you couldn't spin, but that's not happening either. Yeah. So I don't know, and the thing is, none of us really know what's going on because it's all that one side of the story, and it's just that one piece. Like, more hasn't developed yet.
So as of today, I don't know the current, as of today, the 16th, I don't think he's been arrested yet. There's just a warrant out in Utah with some charges.
Right, which, at this point, he'd have to go to Utah, turn himself in, bail himself out.
Or they can extradite him.
They can extradite him there, too. And then just see what happens, at the trial. But I don't know, I don't know when the trial is going to be. I don't think it's going to be before the Olympia. They can't move that fast on it or something like that. But,
no, they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. But I honestly don't think he would,
No, this pretty much ended his Olympia attempt this year for sure.
Absolutely. I honestly think that this is going to impact his life again. I think forever. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what, when you Google Shawn Rhoden, this information is going to pop up. And think about his poor little daughter who's watching this whole thing unfold. His wife who's watching this thing unfold. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more going on. I think people should just kind of leave it alone and let it go, let it play out. But from a business standpoint, I think that, and people get, I get the fact that, you're jumping too fast. Like, Guy Sistanino spoke out, a bunch of people spoke out. Well, here's the deal. What if your sister, your daughter, your cousin, your mother, whoever, was backstage with Shawn Rhoden this year at the 2019 Mr. Olympia? If they let him fucking compete, and they were back there, do you want him back there, even though he hasn't been convicted, walking around your loved ones scantily clad? Most people would say no, even if it hasn't gone to court yet. You know what I mean? So, there's more to it, than just, I think, Shawn, the other girls. It's the people that those people are related to and those loved ones that are not going to buy the tickets, that are going to agree with that person for boycotting it. You fuck around, you could have the attendance down to half this year of what it really is, just based on this situation. I mean, the Olympia is already struggling with what was going on. There's no hype most of the time for the Olympia. Now the current Mr. Olympia is not going to be there.
I know, it could work out to everyone's advantage.
Negative for Shawn, but it might actually work out well for the Olympia, which I don't think that was their plan.
No, of course not.
At the same time, I'm picturing, imagine, my little daughter who's a figure competitor, and Shawn's, taking pictures with her backstage and stuff, and then it comes out that he was convicted because he was guilty? Oh my God, he was back there touching my daughter? I would lose my mind if that actually happened. So I'm trying to look at it from Shawn's point of view, the Olympia, the competitors' loved ones. I try to look at everybody's point of view collectively. but from an individual point of view at the same time, to go, how would I feel? How would I feel if I was Shawn? I don't know if I wouldn't have put a gun to my mouth already. To be totally honest with you, like the stuff that like his little daughter going through this, his wife going through this, his career being stripped away, everything he worked for to become the best in the world being stripped away now. There's a possibility that this evidence or whatever she has is going to convict him.
Does she have evidence?
They have DNA evidence. It's his DNA.
But that's easy to get, right? Like, especially if he was. Here's my suspicion, and I'm just. This is just conjecture, but here's my 2 cents on it. And it's just my conjecture, just my from my own personal experience as a coach over the last almost 30 years. So what ends up happening is a lot of times and I was talking to my girlfriend about this. That when you go to shows or when you go out to these different places, like he was in Utah, and she came over and she said she called him a mentor, which tells me that he's probably his coach. And so she's a figure competitor. There's only one reason why figure competitors or any competitors come to your room or you go to their room is because you're checking their condition on these, or you're consulting with them in some way. And that's usually very common
right,
sort of. I've done it a million times, but I'm very conscientious about my distance. About I don't touch people, and you got to wear a suit. So stuff like that, just common sense stuff, right? And I usually have somebody with me, especially if it's a woman. So, but I can see how this could be like if there's banter back and forth or whatnot, and then he takes it the wrong way. Next thing you know, she shows up. He's consulting with her. You never know what could happen. She says no, and he says he stops, and later somehow she's emotionally hurt from this. She reports it to the police. They spend the next couple of months trying to collect DNA evidence. They find it, they get it, and now you have what you have. That's kind of how I see this. Probably, again, it's all just conjecture. It's all just me just guessing. But
the timeline kind of plays into her deal too, because she immediately went downstairs, told her friend, they went to the police. So they got the DNA from his saliva off of her chest. Means he was like licking her chest or whatever was going on. They also found contusions inside her vagina consistent with rape. Now, the people that did the rape kit see this all the time. They can differentiate from something, whether it was consensual, wasn't, whether it was older, or whether it was fresh. They said they have the proof from the rape kit and the saliva. So now you have 2 things, and then Shawn, I guess, was called to go give a sample, and I guess he never said anything about it because he was like, well, this is bullshit or whatever, but he went to give a sample, and the sample matched. So they have his DNA on her physical body, and they have the scarring and stuff in her vagina, which, and it happened right after. The problem with Utah, they have a backlog of rape kits, which took them so long to get it done, which is why it's coming out now.
Okay. Well,
so now, everything kind of like fits. What she's saying, everything fits, but there could be a missing piece that Shawn can give that blows her whole thing out of the water.
Right.
The problem is, Shawn, why haven't you spoke up at least to say I'm innocent? At least to give your fans, those people, and say, look, this is not true, guys. Trust me, everything's going to be cool. I don't know why she's doing this, whatever. But the silence that he has, I feel like it's either 1, they have the evidence that's going to blow it out of the water and he's going to be innocent. Number 2, they're not really sure what's going on and he's not being honest with the lawyers, so they're just like, shut up. He may be giving stories to the lawyers like, don't say a word, because you've got 3 different stories already. Like, it could go either way. Nobody knows. So everybody's speculating everything. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. Because you don't know and you have to speculate, you have to go with the fact that this could possibly be true. And if it is, do you want him around the other competitors? You know what I mean? You have to play the devil's advocate. Now, you may lose people again. You judged him before. That's going to be a small percentage to the people that would have been like, I can't believe you let him back there. So they're going to take a hit. Olympia's going to take a hit either way. It's not going to, they're not going to get away scot-free. Shawn's not getting away scot-free. The girl's not getting away scot-free. None of these peoples and entities and companies are going to get away scot-free. Oh, what the big problem is it's not the Olympia's fault. They didn't have anything to do with this, but they're going to pay a price one way or the other, whether people agree with what they did or don't. Some people are not going to go this year. Some people are fans of Shawn's. They're not going to go. You know what I mean? I know Shawn's got a ton of fans. Let's say all of his fans boycott because they're not going because Shawn is not going to be there. That's going to be a lot smaller number than if 50 competitors that were women had all their people not go. You know what I mean? Because they all have fans and stuff too. So it's like, I'm sure they were like, man, it's going to cause the least amount of damage to our business.
I think the one good thing that's come out of this that I can see is that it's made, at least from my perspective, it's made this Olympia really interesting because looking at it from a prediction standpoint and looking at it from a competitor standpoint, wow, we got some, and this will be the last topic, and then we'll break, or then we'll end the podcast, this episode. predictions, like, because without Shawn being there because of this incident, regardless, and again, to conclude that, I'd say that I absolutely support the business entity of the Olympia to be able to make that choice. I just always red flags go up when we judge before we know, and that's the only thing. That was my only comment. But this Olympia now becomes really highly fascinating because you got potential of Kai coming in, of course, and if I was Kai, that would be my green light to go. Like, you know what I mean? Because there's no reigning Mr. Olympia, so it's up for literally up for grabs. Okay,
see, now I'm the opposite. If I was Kai, I'd say no. I'm not going unless Phil or Shawn is there, because those are two guys I need to beat to solidify myself as Mr. Olympia, not because they're just out.
I think Phil's in it.
Well, I keep hearing he is and he isn't.
Okay,
so
well,
I don't like it, and he's never made the announcement yet.
The last I talked to him on my show a couple months ago, he sounded 99%. Yeah, that's what he had said to me. But he did leave it open. He did leave it open to say, if I don't feel like I'm right, then I'm not going to do it. I'm going to wait. I'll wait a year.
Kai should absolutely jump in. You know what I mean? Because he's going to be going head to head with the guy that it was like first and second. That makes it exciting again because he took some time off and came back. Phil lost. That makes it like, okay, this is cool. It's one of the most exciting Olympias ever. But if he doesn't, it's like he's going to come back and beat people he's already beaten 100 times. So it's like, of course he's going to win. It's like, well, that like.
Well, not necessarily. This is why I say. This is why I say not necessarily, because there's two people that I see. Wow, really, and one is, of course, Brandon Curry. I think he's a forerunner. Man, I've seen some recent pictures for 8 weeks out. I just posted one up just the other day. Oh my God, he looks like a more balanced version of Phil, like the muscle roundness and bulbousness. He's really done. And then of course Rolly Winkler, because I saw some pictures of him too, and okay, every year this dude's making improvements. He's really it's. I don't think he'll win, but
honestly, if Dexter comes in,
and Dexter, he looks better too.
I mean, you're looking at Dexter and Brandon, I think, battling it out for that top spot, in my personal opinion. But then again, Rulli came in, what was it, last year or the year before? Like when he came in third, he was a much improved bodybuilder. But standing next to Dexter, if Dexter's on, he's gonna edge him out with all the different, facets he has that. Well,
Dexter's a fascinating competitor because, like, I don't know how the dude keeps getting better, man. He's like.
He's got the fountain of youth in his backyard. He bathes in it. Happening. And I mean, you got like Brandon, who I think Brandon absolutely could be the Mr. Olympia, and he can actually, carry that title, and people wouldn't complain about it.
No.
But you're looking at him compared to the other guys. Like this year, will he be at that level where he can take out Dexter? This year, will he be at that level where he's, he seems to be getting there closer and closer, and Rulli is too. But I feel like almost like Brandon has kind of surpassed Rulli a little bit now.
I think
as far
so too.
as how he looks, he just genetic-wise, he has a different pleasing kind of look to his physique that Rulli just can't get. But now it's wide open. But who knows? I mean, you could see another guy somehow he's quiet. He's just out there training and he's doing his stuff and he's covered up and there's no pictures. And he walks out there and you're like,
holy crap.
Like Ronnie did, Dorian did. Like these guys weren't even known when they came over here.
There's so many it's kind of fun. That's what makes this Olympia kind of fun, even though I hope that the Rhoden incident, it doesn't put a dark shadow on the Olympia. Yeah. Because it's such a fun event and it's so wonderful, and it would really mar the experience of all these other wonderful competitors who are going there with good intentions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I think it's going to be talked about.
Yeah,
it's going to be whispered about at the Olympia and stuff. I think people are going to generally want to go there. And they're going to want to enjoy the Olympia. They're going to want to see the battle of who's going to win. I think everybody's going to try to get along with business as usual, but at the same time, it's going to be like very noticeable that Shawn's not there for the first time in how many years. That he's got other stuff going on. I mean, he probably won't even be at the expo. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I assume that, if he's going through this, then he's probably not going to want to show his face at the expo because he doesn't want somebody to take a shot at him at the expo because they're judging him already. You know what I mean? So he kind of has to hide out until it's over, which kind of sucks too. But
yeah, that's too bad. Well, hey, Jerry, man, stay on the line here when I in this. But man, thank you so much for being. It's been an awesome conversation.
I really appreciate it, man. I had a great time.
Yeah, this is awesome. I knew that I would have a good time doing this particular episode. So I truly appreciate you, my friend. You're my bearded brother from. And are you going to be at the Olympia?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so then we'll see each other again this year in 8 weeks, a little less than 8 weeks.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So cool, awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you in person, my friend. But hang out the line real quick so I can end this. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being on the show.